Chapter 841. The Torvosaurus suddenly escaped with Lei Ming because of Zi Chen's telepathic message. Just like Longhu, the Torvosaurus was also awakened by Zi Chen. There was a certain connection between their souls. Just as the Torvosaurus escaped, Zi Chen's seal breaking was also coming to an end. Looking at the seal that was getting bigger and bigger, everyone's faces were filled with excitement, anticipation, and other positive emotions. However, they were more or less angry. This was too much of a scam. In just a single attack, he had broken the seal. The consumption of energy was completely negligible, and Zi Chen had actually obtained 11,000 drops of mid-grade origin, liquefied origin energy. If you want to put on an act, you have to go all the way. Although they were angry, they were relieved when they thought that they would be able to comprehend the Xiantian techniques soon. Boom! Just as the crack on the seal reached its limit, the entire seal broke with a loud bang. The 9 layers of seal disappeared, and a dazzling light surged from the front. Almost without hesitation, everyone rushed forward. However, as soon as they reached the front, a turbulent aura surged from the front. This aura was filled with a dangerous aura, and everyone had no choice but to stop. Sensing the danger, everyone began to carefully size up the area. However, when they saw the brilliant light in front of them, their eyes widened. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Then disappointment, regret, anger, unwillingness, despair, and various other negative emotions surged in their hearts. Zi Chen, are these the 4 Xiantian techniques you mentioned? Qin Li's expression became ferocious as the dazzling light shone. Zi Chen smiled faintly and said, "Yes, what's the problem? Aren't these the 4 Xiantian techniques?" Xia Xan smiled bitterly, his eyes filled with disappointment. He sighed and said, "They are indeed Xiantian techniques, but they are exclusive to the 4 ancient clans." Zi Chen looked at Xia Xan with obvious confusion. "Exclusive? What do you mean? Can't you comprehend them?" The expressions of the others also turned cold. Hearing Zi Chen's question, He shouted at Zi Chen, "Comprehend my ass! The techniques of the 4 ancient clans are not in the 5 elements. How can we comprehend them? Have you ever seen an outsider learn the sun, moon, star, and thunder techniques?" There were 4 types of energy surging in front of him. There was the blazing sunlight, the gentle moonlight, the sparkling light of Xing Qin, and the violent light of thunder. These 4 types of energy light represented the exclusive Yuan Li of the 4 great ancient clans. If a member of the 4 great ancient clans went in, not only would he not be in danger, he would even be able to obtain innate techniques. However, if a member of the 4 great ancient clans went in, he would definitely die. This naturally included the members of the 4 great ancient clans. They could only enter the energy that belonged to them and could not cross paths with each other. At this moment, the 4 types of energy radiance were like a huge turntable, constantly rotating. Bursts of heart-palpitating aura surged out. "Zi Chen, are you doing this on purpose?" Qin Li asked coldly. "What do you mean, on purpose?" Looking at Qin Li, Zi Chen's voice also became cold. "How would I know that you can't comprehend these Xiantian techniques? When I came, I didn't even know who the 4 great ancient clans were." Don't try to quibble. If you didn't know, why didn't you tell us the situation inside first? You were clearly afraid that we wouldn't go in after knowing, and you wouldn't be able to extort us, another person said coldly. Zi Chen glanced at him coldly. "Are you an idiot? If I knew that you couldn't comprehend them, I wouldn't have come out." Then, Zi Chen's face had a hint of disdain. "Since you say that I'm extorting you, then I'll give you the liquefied elemental essence." Qin Li Hizei and the others shook their heads and said, "You didn't know, and this matter can't be blamed on you. As for the liquefied elemental essence, forget it." These 2 people's words were pleasing to the ear, but before Zi Chen could relax, Qin Li's tone suddenly changed. He said coldly, "We don't have to take the resources, but we've worked so hard to come here, and we can't return empty-handed. It's better to leave you alive." Just as he was speaking, 10 of the 11 Sky Realm cultivators suddenly erupted at the same time. Peak Xiantian and Hotian energies began to surge, and then 10 powerful attacks ruthlessly shot towards Zichen. Damn it, they actually launched a sneak attack. Zichen suddenly roared, and the terrifying aura around him immediately surged to the limit. The golden lightning elemental energy formed layer after layer of defense on the surface of his body. Facing 10 powerful attacks at the same time, Zichen's most effective reaction was to defend. Brilliant golden light covered the surface of his body, and layers of defense appeared. Boom! But in the face of these 10 attacks, Zichen's defense was unable to withstand them at all. With a cracking sound, the layers of defense on the surface of Zichen's body shattered, and at the same time the powerful impact sent Zichen's body flying. Zichen was sent flying by the powerful impact, but the direction he was sent flying was towards the center of the 4 types of energy. Aside from the destructive energy formed by the 4 types of energy, there was nothing else here. Zichen's expression was incomparably ferocious. He repeatedly cursed. "Damn it, damn it. Haha, I'll send you to meditate." Qin Li and the others laughed complacently, and at the same time, they sent out one energy attack after another. When these attacks landed on Zichen's body, they caused Zichen's already unstable body to become even more unstable. "Hurry up and leave this place." Just as Zichen's body fell into the 4 types of energy, a frantic spiritual telepathic message reverberated in the area. This was a message from Zichen, indicating for Lei Ming, who was outside, to escape quickly. Zichen's voice was still reverberating in the area. As for Zichen's body, after falling into the 4 types of energy, he was torn apart by the energy and turned into nothingness. When Zichen's voice dissipated, Zichen's body also disappeared from the world. During this period, Xia Xian was still in a state of shock. "You, all of you," Xia Xian looked at the few of them. "How dare you play with us? You deserve to die. You reap what you sow. These 4 types of energy are indeed terrifying." An inborn expert fell in and turned into nothingness in an instant before he could even scream. The others spoke. They did not feel that they had done anything wrong. Instead, their faces were filled with satisfaction and contentment. They were happy that Zichen had died. However, when they saw the 4 types of energy in front of them again, they could not bring themselves to be happy. There were at least 4 types of inborn techniques, and they were all of the highest level. However, they were not fated to obtain them. This was like a poor man who had found a gold mountain after going through untold hardships. He was only 1 step away from the gold mountain, but he was told that the gold mountain was not his and that he could not take it away. This feeling of seeing but not being able to obtain it made everyone want to break down. The 4 great ancient clans are indeed ruthless. Everyone's expression was filled with resentment. "We can't obtain this place, but the others can forget about obtaining it either. Everyone follow me and destroy it." Qin Li's expression was distorted with anger. This was a very good suggestion. They would rather die than live in dishonor. Everyone began to exert their strength to destroy this place. Among the 11 of them, although Xia Xian was disappointed and was in a bad mood, he did not lose his mind. When he saw everyone attacking the 4 types of energy, he could only shake his head continuously. This was the inheritance of the 4 great ancient clans. How could it be destroyed so easily? As expected, the many attacks from the furious crowd were ineffective. The 4 types of energy still existed and could not be destroyed. Damn it, why is this happening? Yao Tingfei was so angry that he stomped his feet. However, no matter how angry he was, it was unrealistic to destroy this place. There was no point in continuing to stay here. Moreover, it was better to use the time to find other inborn techniques. Lei Ming, his and Zichen's pets, are still outside. Let's go and kill them now. Yao Tingfei thought of Lei Ming again. Yes, we have to kill them anyway. We can't let any of them go. Another acquired warrior agreed. The 6 acquired warriors agreed, and the few inborn warriors did not have any objections. Thus, everyone quickly flew toward the outside. In the process of retreating, the restrictive spells that had just disappeared reappeared layer by layer. Seeing these restrictive spells reappear, everyone was so angry that they wanted to vomit blood. They sped all the way until they reached the outside. The 9 layers of restrictive spells had all been restored. However, they did not find any trace of Lei Ming. It must be the voice transmission that Ziqin sent before he died. The 2 of them heard it and ran away. This Ziqin is also a weirdo. He's about to die, but he still has the mood to warn others. It hasn't been that long. Even if they ran, they couldn't have gone far. Hurry up and chase. The group of 11 stepped out of the transmission array. Just as the 9 layers of restrictive spells were restored, a figure walked out of the Thunder Clan's lightning energy. It was Ziqin. His expression was cold to the extreme, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. You all, just you wait. The destructive power formed by the 4 types of energy was very terrifying. If he had not been prepared, he would have been killed by them. Fortunately, when he came in and saw the scene, he guessed that they would not be able to comprehend it. He also guessed that they would immediately turn hostile. Therefore, he left his true body to enter the lightning energy to comprehend, while his doppelganger went out to open the restrictive spells for them. Ziqin had an extra spirit ring in his hand. There were more than 10,000 drops of mid-grade origin liquid inside. They were obtained by his doppelganger and passed to him when he broke the restrictive spells. Seeing these drops of origin liquid, Ziqin's killing intent weakened slightly. After putting away the spirit ring, Ziqin once again walked into the lightning energy. There was a technique inheritance of the Thunder Clan here, and it was a Xiantian Thunder Clan technique. As soon as Ziqin walked in, he saw a huge thunder seal falling towards Ziqin's head. It was a huge square seal with a thunder dragon engraved on each of the 4 corners. The dragons' heads were facing down, their mouths slightly open. They looked very lifelike, as if there were 4 thunder dragons lying on top of the seal. This was the Thunder Clan's Xiantian Thunder Seal. It was extremely powerful. After sensing the thunder seal between Ziqin's eyebrows, the thunder seal fell from the sky. As it fell, the thunder seal gradually shrank, finally landing between Ziqin's eyebrows and merging into his knowledge sea. Chapter 842. Amidst the lightning energy, Ziqin was comprehending the innate lightning skill. There was a heavenly thunder seal imprint in his sea of consciousness. As time passed, Ziqin's comprehension deepened and the imprint dissipated, but at a slower speed. Once the imprint dissipated, Ziqin would be able to obtain the complete innate lightning skill. However, he still had a long way to go before he could perfectly control it and unleash its full power. Take the perfect body technique that the barbarian god had imparted to Ziqin. Ziqin had only broken through to the 2nd level after decades of effort. Originally, Ziqin had an extraordinary comprehension speed for techniques. This was the innate ability that the lightning youth had given him. However, this ability seemed to be only effective for acquired techniques and had no effect on innate techniques. Ziqin sat cross-legged as lightning raged around him. These lightning bolts were enough to kill anyone who wasn't from the Thunder Clan. However, to the Thunder Clan, these lightning bolts posed no danger at all. This was an advantage that the ancient road had given to the 4 ancient clans. The lightning bolts around him were blocked by the golden imprint. Ziqin, who was immersed in comprehending, frowned from time to time and formed hand seals. Just as Ziqin was immersed in comprehending, traces of lightning energy passed through the golden imprint and converged on Ziqin's body. The lightning energy was very pure, and the direction in which it converged was also very uniform. All of it surged towards Ziqin's back. If one looked carefully, they would be able to see that the lightning energy was surging towards Zi Chen's heavenly thunder wings. After absorbing the lightning energy, the heavenly thunder wings seemed to be undergoing some changes. In the outside world, Qin Li and the others rushed out of the mountain peak and didn't find any trace of Lei Ming. They walked down the stone steps as fast as they could and released their spiritual senses. After finding no clues, they flew towards the silver world. However, when they arrived, they didn't find any trace of Lei Ming. When they asked the others, no one saw Lei Ming come back either. Everyone's expression was extremely gloomy. Killing Lei Ming was one of their goals, and snatching Zi Chen's pet was the ultimate goal. However, Lei Ming's whereabouts were unknown. Everyone looked at each other, their eyes filled with unwillingness. After a while, Qin Li was the first to speak. Since we didn't get the innate stage battle skill, should we stay together and look for it, or should we go our separate ways? After hearing what Qin Li said, Hizhe paused and said, "That's the innate skill of the 4 ancient clans. It's already confirmed that we can't get it. There's no point in forming an alliance. Let's split up and find our own opportunities." That's right. The chances of finding a fortuitous encounter in this area are still very high. If we split up, the chances of finding fortuitous encounters will be even higher. Zhong Meng nodded and said, "But everyone can leave a token of contact. If there's anything, we can meet again." Finally, Lan Lang said agreed. Out of the 5 innates, 4 of them had already expressed their views. Even if Xia Xinbiao didn't express his views, it didn't matter. As for Ho Tian, he didn't even have the authority to express his views. Without a common goal, there was no point in everyone staying together. Following this, the 11 of them all left their contact details. The 5 innates also left the contact details of the 6 post-liminary masters. It wasn't purely because they wanted to help, but because they were hoping that the other party might discover the innate techniques. If they couldn't handle it, they would call for help. Just like the previous place, it was also discovered by a Hotian warrior. The 5 Xiantian warriors went their separate ways, leaving behind only 6 Hotian warriors outside the Silver World. In the outside world, the 6 of them were undoubtedly powerful, but in a place with innates, the 6 of them would be suppressed. If they formed an alliance, they still had a chance. But once they split up, they wouldn't be able to deter innates. "Where are you guys going?" Yao Tingfei looked at everyone. The other 5 didn't have a good place to go. As for leaving, it was very unrealistic. They only had one chance in their lives. Before they got what they wanted, they wouldn't leave no matter what. As Hotian warriors, they naturally knew that the thunder liquid essence could transform people into innates, but the amount needed was impossible to estimate. Even if they stayed in the Silver World all day and spent 10,000 years, they might not be able to obtain enough thunder liquid essence to transform into innates. The 5 of them didn't have a good place to go. Yao Tingfei suggested, "Since you guys don't have a good plan, why don't we find Lei Ming together first?" This was a good suggestion, and the 5 of them nodded. Although the 11 of them had split up, these 11 people were doing the same thing. Soon, news spread that Zi Chen was dead and Lei Ming had escaped. Lei Ming, who had once followed Zi Chen to rob many trial challengers, aroused public indignation almost as soon as this news spread, no matter if they had a grudge or not. After hearing this news, almost all of them stepped into the ranks to find Lei Ming. Of course, looking for Lei Ming was united, but everyone's thoughts were not necessarily the same. Lei Ming's entire person seemed to have disappeared from this world. Under the circumstances where all the trial challengers were looking for him, they couldn't find any trace of him even after several days. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. In Zi Chen's knowledge, the previously solid thunder seal had become illusory and dim, as if it could dissipate at any time. Zi Chen's meditation was nearing its end. 3 days later, the thunder seal in Zi Chen's knowledge, completely disappeared. Zi Chen opened his eyes. Zi Chen stood up and looked at the world of lightning in front of him. Lightning seemed to flash in his eyes, and in the next moment, Zichen's hands began to form a seal. These were the seals that Zichen had comprehended in the past 8 days. They were also the seals of the Xiantian technique, Heavenly Thunder Seal. As soon as the seals were formed, the entire world of lightning began to riot. After the last seal fell, a huge thunder seal fell from the sky. The thunder seal shone with a silver light, and there were 4 thunder dragons on it. However, compared to the previous day, Zichen's thunder seal was not very clear. The lines on it were also very vague. Although the thunder dragons were majestic, they were also in an illusory state. After comprehending for 8 days, Zichen was able to use the basics of the thunder seal. Although he couldn't display the strongest power of the thunder seal, just a little bit of its power was enough to surpass many Hotian techniques. The thunder seal didn't fall and dissipated in midair. However, Zichen was very satisfied with the thunder seal. Just as Zichen was about to leave this place, a light suddenly flashed on his back. The heavenly thunder wings appeared on its own. The wings shone with a silver light, and streaks of silver lightning circulated around them. The sudden appearance of the thunder wings startled Zichen, but soon a smile appeared on his face. When the smile completely bloomed on his face, the thunder wings on Zichen's back suddenly shook. In this world of lightning, Zichen's figure suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a real thunderbolt. It was as if he had merged with the lightning, and there was no longer any distinction between them. Zichen's body turned into a flash of lightning, displaying his Xiantian speed. Just a moment ago, when the thunder wings appeared, it was followed by the 7th flash of the 9 flashes of lightning. The appearance of this flash allowed Zichen's footwork to be upgraded to the Xiantian level. When the lightning dissipated, Zichen was already outside the world of lightning, standing outside the light of the 4-colored energy. 8 days ago, his doppelganger was jointly sent into the 4-colored energy by 10 people. 8 days later, Zichen's real body appeared, standing here once again. The ancient road of the strongest trial is full of danger and consumes too many resources. Since you were the first to be unkind, then don't blame me for being unjust. A cold smile suddenly appeared on Zichen's face. Soon after, Zichen left this place. There were 9 layers of restrictions here, but to Zichen, they existed in name only. The ancient road of the strongest trial was indeed very generous to the 4 great ancient clans. When Zichen passed through the 9 layers of restrictions, Barbarian Dragon, who had received the news, appeared with Lei Ming. In these 8 days, the 2 of them had been hiding underground outside the forbidden sky domain. No one could guess where they were, so naturally no one could find them. Zichen. When Lei Ming reached the peak again and saw Zichen, he was pleasantly surprised. Zichen nodded and asked, "What's the situation outside?" Lei Ming shook his head. "I don't know. We've been hiding underground for the past few days. What happened? Why did Barbarian Dragon bring me away?" Zichen sneered. "We found a Xiantian technique, but it's a technique exclusive to the 4 great ancient clans. They can't get it." Lei Ming's expression changed as he exclaimed, "Did they attack you?" "That's right. Luckily, I reacted in time. Otherwise, I would have died." Lei Ming looked at Zichen and said, "It's good that you're fine. Did you get that Xiantian technique?" "What is it?" Zichen had nothing to hide from Lei Ming, who was also from the Thunder Clan. Moreover, along the way, he had resolved several dangers related to the Thunder Clan. He had long since decided to repay the Thunder Clan. "Heavenly Thunder Seal," Zichen said. "Heavenly Thunder Seal. It's actually Heavenly Thunder Seal," Lei Ming exclaimed. Although the Thunder Clan had lost the Thunder Clan's techniques, many of them were still in the records. This Heavenly Thunder Seal was an extremely powerful Xiantian lightning technique. "Let's not talk about this for now. Now I'm going to kill and clear the area. Are you going to stay here and study or come with me?" Zichen asked. Lei Ming pondered for a moment, then said, "I'll go with you." After Zichen nodded, the 2 left the area. On the way, Lei Ming heard about what the Xiantian realm warriors had done. He cursed them for being shameless. Lei Ming, it's Lei Ming. Look, it's really Lei Ming. We've been looking for him for a long time. The two of them had just flown 100 miles when they discovered traces of the trial takers. When the trial takers saw Lei Ming, their faces instantly lit up with ecstasy. But before they could fly over, they saw Zichen. Zichen, that's Zichen. Damn it, didn't they say Zichen was dead? The news is wrong. Let's go. The challengers' faces changed. They turned around and wanted to run, but their speed was too slow. Not to mention Zichen and Torvosaurus. Even Lei Ming couldn't compare. Lei Ming rushed forward and knocked his opponent unconscious in a few moves. This time, Zichen didn't hold back. He swept his gaze over the challengers who had fainted and said coldly, "Take away their resources and throw them out of this world." The several Xiantian realm trial takers' selfishness had thoroughly infuriated Zichen. After returning, Zichen decided to follow suit, causing Zichen to be enraged. Chapter 843. The exit to this world was hundreds of thousands of miles away. It was a huge transmission array. If the trial takers wanted to leave this world, they had to go through it. But those who came to this world were all people with great opportunities. Before they were satisfied with their harvest, no one was willing to leave. Take Lei Ming, for example. In this world, he had been bullied by the other trial takers, but he still stayed here for many years. After Zichen became angry, this world was no longer as simple as leaving whenever one wanted. Now, whenever Zichen saw a cultivator, he would directly knock them unconscious and force them to leave if he had no enmity with them. If he did, he would kill them on the spot, whether it was out of selfishness or revenge. In short, the angry Zichen had gone crazy. Because of a mere 10 people, Zichen had taken his anger out on all the trial takers in this world. His actions were undoubtedly unwise, and it would be extremely disadvantageous for him in the future. But in life, one could not always be rational. Sometimes one had to be impulsive. During this time, Lei Ming had completely become an errand boy. So far, he had already sent out more than 20 trial takers. The next time these 20 trial takers appeared, they would be in the first human gathering place. This feeling is really wonderful. Lei Ming used his energy to support the 10 unconscious trial takers. His face was full of pride and satisfaction. All these years he had been bullied. When had he ever bullied others? Now, all the people who had bullied him had become unconscious in front of Lei Ming. And Lei Ming was going to throw them out of this world. Pow! 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 Like throwing chickens, Lei Ming threw them onto the transmission array. This transmission array did not require yuan stones. It relied on the array to automatically absorb the world's spiritual energy and operate on its own. Just as the 10 or so people were thrown on the array, a light flashed and they all disappeared. When Lei Ming finished dealing with the crowd and returned, he found that another group of people had been met by Zichen. These people were all trial takers who wanted to find Lei Ming and blackmail him to find the lightning liquid for them. After seeing Zichen, their faces instantly changed, and they immediately fled. As a Xiantian realm warrior, Zichen's battle strength was undoubtedly strong. In a situation where there were no strong Hotian realm warriors, they had no chance of winning. Lei Ming watched from afar as Zichen chased after him. Zichen's body flashed with a golden light as he displayed his Hotian extreme speed. Even if he didn't use the heavenly thunder wings, this kind of Hotian extreme speed was unparalleled. Flashing in front of a cultivator, Zichen threw a punch. His attacks were simple and direct. Over the past few days, Lei Ming had seen them many times. But every time he saw Zichen fight, Lei Ming's mind would be in a state of shock. He would feel his blood boil. The trial taker's strength was not weak, and his reaction was very quick. The moment Zichen appeared in front of him, he had already taken out his elixir weapon and prepared a timely defense. However, under Zichen's punch, both the pill weapon and the defensive barrier were instantly shattered. At the same time, the powerful punch knocked the trial taker unconscious. The fact that the trial taker had been knocked unconscious so easily wasn't because the trial taker was weak, but because Zi Chen's combat power was too strong. Zi Chen's attacks seemed simple, but they required a strong physical strength to support them. This kind of rough, brutal, and direct fighting could not be done without the cooperation of a strong physique. It was unknown whether others could do it, but at least Lei Ming couldn't. He had tried it before. In the end, when he punched, the other party was fine, but the bones in his hand were shattered. As his body flashed, Zi Chen punched again and again. One after another, the trial takers were knocked unconscious and fell from the sky. While shocked by Zi Chen's combat power, Lei Ming did not stand there like a fool. In addition to being in charge of transportation, he had a more important task, which was to collect the resources on the people's bodies. Zi Chen did things according to his principles. Although he had cut off the people's opportunities, he did not destroy their lives. He only wanted resources and not materials. He left some materials for them to exchange when they arrived at the first human gathering place. Almost in the blink of an eye, Zi Chen, who had punched more than 10 times, ended the battle. His body landed from the sky. His face was not red, and he was not out of breath. He looked calm and did not consume much energy. After Lei Ming collected the resources as quickly as possible, he put them in a spirit ring and handed it to Zi Chen. But it had to be said that the harvest this time was not much because there were a few things that had been snatched before. Throw them away. After putting away the spirit ring, Zi Chen glanced at the trial takers and said indifferently, "Throw them away." Lei Ming nodded. He had just returned, but now he had to leave again. Among these people, there were a few that Lei Ming could not bear to look back on. After seeing them faint, Lei Ming secretly kicked them a few times to vent his dissatisfaction. As for whether or not he would break their bones, Lei Ming did not consider it. Even if he did, they would be like dead pigs after fainting. They would not know who did it. Even if they woke up and found that their bones were broken, they would only think that it was caused by Zi Chen. Zi Chen had already attracted enough hatred, so he did not care about such a small and insignificant hatred. Zi Chen attracted more and more hatred, and the sudden appearance of so many trial takers who had fainted in the human gathering area also attracted a lot of attention. Zi Chen did not know that, although he had not set foot in the first human gathering area, he had already attracted a lot of attention. This was because there was no lack of sky martialists among the trial takers who had fainted. The first thing these people said when they woke up was to shout at Zi Chen. During this time, almost all the regions were talking about what Zi Chen had done on the 5-8 ancient road. Zi Chen did not know that he had already become famous before he had even reached the first human gathering area. Of course, this was a story for another time. Lei Ming was very pleased with himself as he led the fainted trial takers to the teleportation platform. He had vented his anger a few times, so he was secretly feeling good. Suddenly, Lei Ming's complacent expression disappeared and he looked straight ahead. 6 cultivators appeared in front of him. They were all Hotian martialists, and their strength was comparable to Tang Yan's. Coincidentally, Lei Ming recognized these 6 people. They were the 6 people who had followed the 5 Xiantian martialists to search for the Xiantian technique. While Lei Ming was in a daze, the 6 of them also saw him. They were startled at first, but then ecstasy appeared on their faces. They had been searching for Lei Ming for more than 10 days, but they had not found any clues. Moreover, the number of trial takers they had encountered along the way was getting fewer and fewer. Just as they were about to give up and search for the technique inheritance, they unexpectedly encountered Lei Ming. Lei Ming! Yao Tingfei shouted from a distance. Lei Ming seemed to wake up when he heard this shout. He let out a strange cry and ran away, abandoning the dozen fainted trial takers. "Stop right there, you damned bastard!" "Lei Ming, you stop right there." When they saw Lei Ming running away, Yao Tingfei and the others immediately chased after him. Before they shouted, Lei Ming's speed was not very fast, But after they shouted, Lei Ming's speed suddenly changed and he rushed forward like a bolt of lightning. These days, Lei Ming had not given up on refining the liquid lightning essence. Of course, his liquid lightning essence came from Zi Chen's hands. Although his strength did not increase, after refining so much liquid lightning essence, the quality of his lightning essence had greatly improved, and his battle strength had also increased by several times. At this moment, Lei Ming increased his speed and left the 6 people far behind. "Damned bastard, you can run, but let's see how long you can run." The 6 people gritted their teeth and chased after him, trying to close the distance between them. "Help, help!" Lei Ming shouted as he ran, but there were sounds of mockery behind him. Zi Chen was already dead, and everyone was looking for Lei Ming. No one would save him. The 6 people had smug and sinister smiles on their faces, but they completely ignored the fact that Lei Ming had brought the dozen fainted trial-takers with him. Hearing Lei Ming's cry for help, Zi Chen frowned slightly and looked towards the horizon. Lei Ming was still shouting, but after seeing Zi Chen, his face lit up and he shouted, Zi Chen, I've brought your enemy here. He's right behind you." Lei Ming did not deliberately suppress his voice, so the 6 people behind him heard him clearly. When they heard the 2 words Zi Chen, their expressions changed slightly, but soon they laughed wildly. "Lei Ming, are you trying to use this trick to escape? Let me tell you it's useless, not to mention that Zi Chen is already dead. Even if he's not dead and suddenly appears, we can still kill him." Yao Tingfei joked. "Is that so?" Suddenly, a cold voice came from the horizon, followed by a terrifying aura. Zi Chen's figure appeared on the horizon, his eyes filled with killing intent. Seeing Zi Chen, the 6 people looked as if they had seen a ghost. Yao Tingfei pointed at Zi Chen and said in horror, You're dead." "Dead? Do you think I went through the ancient road for nothing? If you're not dead, how can I be dead?" Zi Chen's voice became colder and colder, and his figure was approaching at an extremely fast speed. The 6 people were angry and had the urge to curse. Obviously, they had been tricked by Lei Ming. At this moment, Zi Chen was approaching, but the 6 people were unwilling to retreat. After looking at each other, they could only fight again. Moreover, the 6 people's combat strength was second only to a Xiantian warrior. Once they joined forces, even a Xiantian warrior would have to avoid them. The 6 people looked at each other and nodded heavily. Then they attacked Zi Chen fiercely. Although they were using acquired skills, their power was definitely strong. If it were an ordinary Xiantian warrior facing such a powerful attack, he would naturally choose to avoid it first. Then he would find an opportunity to attack and defeat them one by one. However, Zi Chen was not an ordinary Xiantian warrior. His elemental energy was already at the Xiantian level. Moreover, he had 2 types of Xiantian elemental energy. He was equivalent to 2 Xiantian warriors. As for his physique, he had the most perfect physique. In addition, he had a battle technique specially created for the perfect body. Zi Chen, who was at the pinnacle of level 7, had strength that exceeded his elemental energy realm. Therefore, Zi Chen took the initiative to meet the 6 attacks. At the same time, the golden strength of his physical body was displayed to the extreme. Zi Chen swung his fist and released a fist light formed by Xiantian skill. Although this dazzling fist was not domineering, the power it contained was extremely terrifying. After the 6 acquired warriors' powerful attacks collided with Zi Chen's fist light, they were instantly shattered. In the blink of an eye, a rumbling sound came from the sky. The 6 people's joint attack was dissolved by Zi Chen's fist. Chapter 844. The combat power of the 6 of them was infinitely close to the Xiantian realm, but their combined attack was neutralized in a single blow. At this moment, the 6 of them were completely shocked by Zi Chen's strength. Zi Chen did not stop after smashing the 6 attacks with a single punch. Instead, he turned into a golden light and rushed forward. The Xiantian realm combat technique appeared again, and the golden fist appeared once more. This time, Zi-Chun initiated the attack. The 6 of them attacked together in a hurry. The 5 elemental techniques were displayed. Different colors of energy surged. Time was short, and the 6 of them switched from offense to defense. Pow! When Zi-Chen's attack arrived, it was as easy as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. His golden fist was so dazzling that it was almost impossible for people to open their eyes. Amidst the rumbling sound, the person closest to Zi-Chen had his defense broken. He was struck by Zi-Chen, and his body was sent flying. Of the 6 people who had formed the defense, only 5 remained. After the punch, Zi-Chen rose into the air. His body did not stop, and he immediately punched again. Pow! The golden fist shone with a terrifying power. This punch broke through layers of defense and hit another person. Another one of the 5 was sent flying by Zi-Chen. The 5 of them joined forces, and there were only 4 left. Just like that, the 6 people's defenses were all shattered by Zi-Chen's continuous punches. The surging power sent the 6 people flying one after another. During this time, there were 3 attacks that Zi-Chen did not dodge and was hit. However, with his powerful physique, these 3 attacks were not enough to kill Zi-Chen. One of the elixir weapon's attacks even landed on Zi-Chen's body, producing a clanging sound. It did not break through his defense, and instead, the elixir weapon was sent flying. Seeing Zi-Chen break the defense of the 6 of them with 7 punches and send them flying, Lei Ming was petrified. He secretly exclaimed that Zi-Chen's combat power was too terrifying. But soon, Lei Ming became excited because Zi-Chen represented the Thunder Clan. The Thunder Clan that possessed powerful techniques was terrifying. Being repelled so easily, the 6 people's eyes were filled with shock. One must know that the 6 of them were only weaker than an innate rancor. If the 6 of them joined hands, it would be necessary for them to retreat. However, Zi-Chen's combat power was too strong. He could actually fight against the 6 of them alone. The 6 of them were sent flying, but they weren't injured. They looked at each other and nodded heavily. Then they charged towards Zi-Chen. From their point of view, Zi-Chen's battle prowess was indeed strong, but that was the limit. Fighting 1 against 6, Zi-Chen could only barely resist and not truly suppress them. On the other hand, the 6 of them were strong and had rich and abundant origin energy. They had a chance of killing Zi-Chen. Upon seeing the 6 of them rush over, Zi-Chen's eyes flashed with killing intent. He pushed his perfect body's strength to its limits as he stood in midair. He clenched his right fist and accumulated strength without taking the initiative to attack. Within a short distance, the 6 of them arrived in front of Zi-Chen in the blink of an eye. Their elixir weapons flickered with cold light as they ruthlessly pierced towards Zi-Chen. Facing the 6 attacks, Zi-Chen punched out instead of dodging. It was obvious that he wanted to meet force with force. However, exchanging 1 attack for 6 attacks was not a good deal, courting death. A cold glint flashed in the eyes of the 6. Their originally powerful attacks were now 30% stronger. Zi-Chen's defense had already been raised to its limits. As for his fist, it contained extremely terrifying strength. When the 6 attacks arrived, Zi-Chen's fist beam had already landed. Neither side dodged as an explosion sounded. Aft! Among the 6 of them, Zi-Chen attacked Yao Tingfei. After receiving Zi-Chen's strongest punch after accumulating strength, the elixir weapon in his hand instantly shattered and exploded. At the same time, a terrifying force surged towards him. Under the surging force, Yao Tingfei immediately coughed out blood and was sent flying. With 1 strike, Yao Tingfei was heavily injured. Many of the bones in his body were shattered, and he had lost almost all of his combat ability. While the other 5 people's attacks landed on Zi-Chen, 2 of them did not break through his defense, while the other 3 only caused some superficial wounds on Zi-Chen. Zi-Chen's super strong defense caused the 5's faces to be filled with shock. In the distance, Lei Ming was also completely shocked. However, he was not shocked by Zi Chen's defense, but by Zi Chen's special attack. Just as the five people's attacks were about to land, Zi Chen's body suddenly emitted a dazzling light. This dazzling light blocked the vision of the five people. The dazzling light disappeared in a flash, but there were now 2 more people in the originally 6-people field. These 2 people had the same appearance as Zi Chen. They should be Zi Chen's doppelgangers. However, their temperaments were completely different. One had a head full of golden hair and looked very handsome. He held a huge golden sword in his hand. The other had a head full of silver hair and a cold aura. He held the silver soul spear tightly in his hand. The 2 appeared behind the 5 and immediately attacked. The golden sword in Zi Chen's hand carried a cold sword light as it chopped towards the head of a Hotian warrior. The silver hair Zi Chen held the silver soul spear in his hand. It turned into a cold bolt of lightning and pointed towards the back of the other warrior. The 2 had appeared very suddenly. Besides Lei Ming, no one else had seen them. The timing of their attacks was also very accurate. They had attacked almost as soon as the 5's attacks were about to land. The 2 were right behind them. Their attacks arrived in the blink of an eye. The golden sword light flashed and a Hotian warrior's head was separated from his body. His face was still filled with shock at Zi Chen's defense. At the same time, a silver spear light flashed from another direction and pierced through the heart of another warrior. With a hole in the heart, the warrior's face was filled with shock. This scene happened in the blink of an eye. After the 2 were injured, a turbulent force rushed towards their knowledge seas. Their spiritual senses were instantly destroyed, and they died. When the other 3 saw this scene, they subconsciously turned their heads. Just as they turned their heads, Zi Chen clenched his fist and punched out. This attack was a Xiantian level attack. It heavily hit the chest of a Hotian warrior. A muffled explosion sounded in the air. The Hotian warrior who had been hit by Zi Chen's full-force attack was sent flying. But unlike Yao Tingfei, when he was sent flying, the powerful force had already extinguished his life force. In almost the blink of an eye, 3 of the 6 had died and 1 was seriously injured. The other 2 knew that things were not going well and fled in 2 different directions. The golden hair Zi Chen and the silver hair Zi Chen chased after the other 2. Zi Chen's cold eyes fell on Yao Tingfei, who was trying to escape. He did not chase after him. Instead, he formed a seal in the air. The seal of the Xiantian level Heavenly Thunder seal quickly fell. The sky suddenly shook and a huge thunder seal appeared. This thunder seal was somewhat illusory, but the terrifying power it contained made Yao Tingfei's soul leave his body. This is the Xiantian level thunder seal. Seeing the thunder seal coming straight for him, Yao Tingfei mobilized all the power in his body to block the attack. But how could he block the Xiantian level thunder seal when he was seriously injured? Boom! The thunder seal crashed down, creating a deep hole in the ground. And in the deep hole was a corpse with an unrecognizable face. Yao Tingfei dead. Not long after, 2 more explosions sounded in the distant sky. Then, 2 rays of light flew over from the horizon. One was gold and the other was silver. As they approached, the 2 rays of light turned into human figures. They were Zi Chen's 2 doppelgangers. The 2 doppelgangers were holding a spirit ring and an inner core. After handing the things to Zi Chen, the 2 doppelgangers immediately disappeared. During this time, Zi Chen also took the resources of the other 4 people. Lei Ming, who had left with Zi Chen, still had a look of shock on his face. 6 powerful Hotian warriors had actually been so easily slaughtered, and the death of 6 people only left Zi Chen with minor injuries. After the 2 left, the trial takers heard the commotion and rushed over. When they saw the corpses on the ground, their faces changed dramatically. Many of them had already recognized the identities of these Hotian warriors. Seeing the 6 corpses, which meant that 6 powerful Hotian warriors had died, the crowd didn't say much, but they faintly felt that the situation was not good. But at this moment, they heard the sound of an explosion in the distance. "It's not far from here. Let's go and have a look." The group of people flew in the direction of the explosion. After 10,000 miles, they saw two people fighting in the sky. "It's Qin Li, the Xiantian level warrior." After seeing the person fighting in the field, someone exclaimed. As a Xiantian level warrior, Qin Li was very famous in this world. But at this moment, there was someone fighting with Qin Li, and there was no clear winner. When everyone's eyes fell on Qin Li's opponent, many people's faces changed. "Zichen, it's Zichen. Isn't he dead? Zichen, is he the Zichen who randomly stole resources? In this world, who else could it be?" After seeing Zichen, the crowd exclaimed again and again. Then they saw Lei Ming not far away. In the sky, the two people were fighting fiercely, and there was no clear winner. This was a battle between two Xiantian level warriors, and it was difficult to determine the winner in a short time. More and more trial takers rushed over after hearing the news. When they saw the battle in the sky, their faces changed greatly. Suddenly, a sharp whistle sounded from the horizon, and a turbulent aura came raging. Zichen Dai. The person who came was another Xiantian level warrior. It was Zhong Meng. When he saw Zichen in the distance, he shouted loudly. Another Xiantian level warrior came. Just when everyone thought that Zichen was going to escape, something strange happened. They saw Zichen's body suddenly emitting a dazzling light, and his whole body split into three. One was the blonde Zichen, one was the silver-haired Zichen, and the last one was his real body. After the three Zichens appeared, they attacked Qin Li together. Zichen's real body attacked, and with a powerful punch, Qin Li was sent flying more than 10 meters. At the same time, Zichen's two doppelgangers attacked. They formed seals with their hands, and the lightning energy of extreme yin and extreme yang surged out. The two energies turned into sharp blades and rushed towards Qin Li. When they got close, they collided with each other. When yin and yang collided, the power of the extreme yuan force increased by dozens of times. Qin Li, who was at the center of the collision, let out a shrill scream. This scream was earth-shattering, and it stunned everyone. Zhong Meng, who was rushing over, heard this scream, and his face changed drastically. At the same time, his body flew into the air. Chapter 845. The turn of the battle was truly unexpected. In just one short attack, the powerful Xiantian warrior, Qin Li, had been killed. Of course, he had underestimated his opponent, and Zichen's unexpected attack was one of the reasons. However, Zichen's strength was even more important. When the two completely opposite ultimate elemental energies were unleashed, the destructive power was far beyond everyone's imagination. Qin Li's body turned into charred black and fell to the ground. The surroundings were dead silent. Everyone was petrified. The powerful Xiantian warrior, Qin Li, had been killed in such a way. One had to know that this was a Xiantian warrior, not a Hotian warrior. Zichen stood in the air with a cold expression. Killing a Xiantian warrior in one blow made his body seem even taller. His two doppelgangers, one gold and one silver, stood on his left and right like servants. Seeing Qin Li killed in one blow, Zhong Meng's face was full of shock. He had long stopped rushing forward and looked at Zichen with eyes full of reverence. When Zichen's cold eyes swept over, Zhong Meng did not hide the fear in his eyes. Without hesitation, he turned and fled. Obviously, after killing Qin Li, Zhong Meng knew that he would be the next person Zichen would kill. "Run? Do you think you can run?" Zichen's cold voice sounded in the next moment. His body was full of killing intent. None of the people who had schemed against him would be left alive. The heavenly thunder wings appeared on Zichen's back. With a flap of the wings, Zichen displayed the extreme speed of a Xiantian warrior. He chased after Zhong Meng like a bolt of lightning. She spread her spiritual senses and sensed the strange speed behind her. The fear in Zhong Meng's heart grew stronger. Qin Li had been killed in one move. Zhong Meng did not think that she was stronger than Qin Li. Before the reinforcements came, she would definitely die if they caught up. Therefore, he made up his mind, gritted his teeth, and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. A mouthful of dark red blood essence condensed in the air and didn't dissipate. Zhong Meng extended his glowing finger and drew on the blood essence. At the critical moment of life and death, his drawing speed was very fast. As a simple pattern formed on the blood essence, Zhong Meng's blood essence and essence force instantly depleted by a third. In the next moment, a mysterious power was emitted from the blood essence. This power enveloped Zhong Meng's entire body. In the next moment, Zhong Meng's entire body emitted a faint red light. Her speed was several times faster than before. Using the secret technique, Zhong Meng's speed actually surpassed Zichen's innate extreme speed. In the blink of an eye, he had left Zichen far behind. Then, Zhong Meng took out one token after another from his bosom and crushed them one by one. If he was alone, he was afraid of Zichen's battle prowess. But once reinforcements arrived, they would definitely be able to kill Zichen. This was because, as a fellow trial taker who could withstand the siege of several Xiantian realm martial artists and offend Zichen, both sides would not rest until one of them was dead. Now that the opportunity was right in front of her, Zhong Meng did not want to miss it. However, in this kind of situation, the difference between killing and being killed was just a thought away. The power of the secret technique was gradually dissipating, and Zhong Meng's speed decreased. Just as Zhong Meng thought that he should leave Zichen far behind, the sound of something breaking through the air came from afar. Zichen was shooting over like a bolt of lightning. Although Zichen had only practiced up to the 7 fades level of the 7 fades, this 7 fades was not something that a mere secret technique could compare with. The secret technique could only allow the user to erupt with extreme speed in an instant. However, this kind of extreme speed could not be maintained for long. This was only an emergency measure. Zhong Meng's speed was getting slower and slower. Correspondingly, Zichen's speed was getting faster and faster. The distance between the two was also getting shorter and shorter. If this continued, it would not be long before Zichen caught up to Zhong Meng. Reinforcements had not arrived yet, and Zhong Meng had used the secret technique once more. His battle prowess had been greatly reduced. If he used the secret technique once more and still could not wait for reinforcements, then even escaping would be impossible. Forget it, I'll think about it next time. Zhong Meng sighed helplessly and continued to vomit blood. After another third of his essence, blood, and elemental energy was forcibly absorbed, he accelerated once more. In a short period of time, Zhong Meng had used the secret technique twice in a row. He clearly felt weak. This time he no longer hoped to kill Zichen. Without hesitation, he turned around and flew towards the teleportation platform. Swoosh! Just as the power of the secret technique was about to be exhausted, the exhausted Zhong Meng finally saw the teleportation exit. His face finally had a look of relief. He had been frantically running all this time. The feeling of being chased almost made him collapse. He rushed in. The light of the teleportation array activated, and Zhong Meng's figure disappeared. In the end, Zichen did not manage to catch up. 2 Xiantian warriors, one dead and one escaping. Zichen chased after him. Just as everyone was still in shock, Lei Ming suddenly appeared. He walked straight towards the dead Qin Li. Since Qin Li was dead, he was responsible for taking away Qin Li's resources. There were dozens of trial takers here. Originally, they were all looking for Lei Ming. But now, seeing Lei Ming on the scene, no one dared to make a move. Hurry up and chase everyone out of this world. Suddenly, Zichen's voice came from the horizon. Zhong Meng used the secret technique to escape, and Zichen quickly returned. Hearing Zichen's voice, Lei Ming put away the resources and rushed towards the trial takers without hesitation. At the same time, a loud dragon roar resounded. The Torvosaurus that had been following Lei Ming suddenly grew bigger and also rushed towards the trial takers. Run! Hurry up and leave this world. Crazy, Zichen has gone crazy. He wants to attack everyone. The trial takers all shouted. The scene of Zichen killing Qin Li was still vivid in their minds. They did not dare to have any thoughts of fighting back, so they turned around and ran. Zichen looked at the trial takers who were escaping from the sky and did not make a move. There were dozens of trial takers who fled in all directions. The Torvosaurus and Lei Ming could not deal with them all. Soon, some of them successfully escaped. There were too many trial takers in this world. Zichen could not plunder all of them. He did not have that much time and energy. As for the resources they had, the dozens of them added together were not even a fraction of what a Xiantian realm martial artist would have. Among the dozens of trial takers, more than 20 were knocked unconscious by the Torvosaurus and Lei Ming. Lei Ming brought these 20-plus people and flew towards the exit. After Lei Ming returned, Zichen and Lei Ming set off to find other Xiantian realm martial artists and kill them one by one. The news of Zichen killing Qin Li in one strike quickly spread throughout this world. Many people saw that the situation was not good and were already preparing to escape. Compared to opportunities, life was more important. Thus, more and more people began to leave this world. The two Xiantian realm martial artists naturally heard the news and quickly gathered together. Zichen is not dead. Do you know? This was the first sentence that the two of them said after reuniting. For some reason, Xia Xian was not with them. He killed Qin Li in one strike and chased Zhong Meng away, Lan Lang said. Obviously, he knew the whole story. Killing Qin Li in one strike? Could it be a rumor? Zichen is only in the middle stage of the primal core realm. How could he have such strong battle power? Hizei was in disbelief. Lan Lang shook his head and said, "It is not a rumor. The person who told me the news said it very clearly." Zichen's two doppelgangers turned Qin Li into a charred corpse with one strike. Moreover, his two doppelgangers actually had opposite Ultimate Yuan Li. Opposite Ultimate Yuan Li? How is that possible? Hearing this, Hizei's eyes immediately widened. He exclaimed, "Could it be that Zichen's body contains two Ultimate Yuan Li?" Lan Lang nodded. His face was extremely ugly. Although this is unbelievable, it is the truth. One is Yin Thunder, and the other is Yang Thunder. The power produced by the collision of Yin and Yang is unimaginable. Possessing two ultimate Yuan Li? How did he survive? Damn it! I didn't think that we would scheme against such an existence. Zichen is not dead. It seems that the one we sent in was a doppelganger. Damn it! We were so careless that we didn't see it. Hizei continued. Then what do we do now? We can't contact Xia Xian. The two of us may not be able to kill Zichen. Kill him. Lan Lang stared and said, "You still want to kill him? Whether we can survive or not is still uncertain. Don't forget that Zichen has an extremely powerful pet. That pet is very similar to the green dragon totem. Its battle power is definitely not weak." Then what do you mean? Let's wait for Xia Xian. If we can't wait, the two of us will work together to escape. Lan Lang said without hesitation. Hizei paused and said, Lan Lang did make a move back then. The possibility of him escaping with us is not high. Moreover, Zichen's battle power is so strong. He naturally won't be willing to go against Zichen for us. It's fine if we don't run. Then let's go. Let's go now. With that, the two of them stood up and rushed towards the teleportation platform. When they were still a few miles away from the teleportation platform, they saw Zichen from afar. Obviously, Zichen had already predicted this and was waiting for the two of them here. The two of them looked at each other. They didn't turn around and run. Instead, they flew forward. Zichen looked at the two of them coldly. The two of them didn't say much. When they were less than 2 miles away, the two of them suddenly accelerated and attacked Zichen together. Zichen's body emitted a strong light. The two great doppelgangers had already appeared. After they appeared, they began to form hand seals. In the next moment, two huge square seals appeared in the sky. This was the heavenly thunder seal. It was formed by two extreme energies. One was golden and carried a destructive thunder power within it. The other was silver and carried a destructive thunder power within it. The two thunder seals directly blocked the two of them. The two of them had no choice but to use their powerful attacks. However, before their attacks could land, the two lightning seals collided in the sky. Boom! It was comparable to the self-destruction of a primordial core. The area within a radius of a few miles immediately became a zone of destruction. The collision of the two extreme energies caused a huge tremor. Before the collision's energy dissipated, two light figures rushed out. It was Hizei and Lanlang. However, at this moment, their clothes were torn in many places. They looked extremely miserable. The two of them had just rushed out. The two great doppelgangers rushed towards Lanlang with their elixir weapons, while Zi-Chun rushed towards Hizei. At the same time, a loud dragon roar sounded. The dragon flew over from the sky and joined the battle. Previously it was 2 against 1, but now it was 4 against 2. Chapter 846. Back then, Zhong Meng was able to escape from Zi-Chun mainly because she was far enough away from Zi-Chun. When Zi-Chun used his innate speed to chase after her, the latter decisively used a secret technique to escape. However, Lanlang and Hizei charged straight at Zi-Chun, attempting to charge past Zi-Chun and reach the teleportation platform. However, once the distance between them closed, Zi-Chun displayed his ferocious and swift attacks. Under a series of high-frequency attacks, the two of them no longer had the chance to use their secret techniques. Escaping was impossible. Even if they ran to the teleportation platform several kilometers away, it was extremely unrealistic, as they were too close to the teleportation platform and the opponent was a powerful Xiantian martial artist. A moment of carelessness could allow the opponent to take the opportunity to escape. Therefore, Zi-Chun went all out from the beginning, using almost all of his trump cards. His avatar and the Torvosaurus both entered the battlefield. Of course, Lei Ming did not enter. As a postnatal lightning cultivator, if Lei Ming were to participate in a battle of this level, only death would await him. This battle was relatively long. During this period, the two of them charged several times, using all kinds of sequential and postnatal techniques in an attempt to reach the teleportation platform, but to no avail. An enraged Zi-Chun was undoubtedly terrifying, but Zi-Chun, who displayed all of his combat strength, was even more terrifying. Along the way, they had experienced many hardships and narrowly escaped death several times. When they reached the core formation realm, it was even more dangerous. Zi-Chun had experienced many hardships in exchange for powerful combat strength that stood at the peak of the same level. Under the threat of death, the two Xiantian martial artists could be said to have unleashed all of their potential. However, their opponents were Zi-Chun and the Torvosaurus. One had a perfect body and 2 types of ultimate innate elemental force, while the other was a pure Torvosaurus. This was a true dragon, so its combat strength was naturally not weak. A miracle did not happen to Hizei and Lanlang. Even though the two of them displayed 120% of their combat strength, they still became victims of Zi-Chun's revenge. 2 corpses fell from the sky, one after another. One was blasted into a charred corpse by Zi-Chun using ultimate elemental force, while the other had his bones shattered and his soul destroyed by the Torvosaurus. After taking the resources from the two of them, Zi-Chun left with the barbaric dragon. Of course, they weren't leaving this world. They were going somewhere else to search for opportunities. Of the 10 people who had plotted against him that day, except for Zhong Meng, the rest were all killed. The 11th person, Xia Exan, was still alive, but the latter had not plotted against him that day. The angry Zi-Chun was still rational and did not take the initiative to cause trouble for Xia Exan. As far as Zi-Chun was concerned, he had reaped a lot of benefits from the journey of the 8 ancient paths. He had obtained a lot of resources, and he had also obtained a Xiantian technique. His origin power had also once again broken through because of the lightning liquid essence. It could be said that everyone was happy. With the powerful Xiantian realm martial artists dying one by one, the other challengers began to feel the pressure and danger and began to leave. With the departure of so many challengers, there weren't many people left who could pose a threat to Lei Ming. These days, Lei Ming had been following Ziqin. The two of them were also looking for opportunities. After all, there was only one chance, and Ziqin didn't want to miss it. He also didn't want to leave too early. During this period, Ziqin had passed on many Hotian lightning techniques to Lei Ming, and Lei Ming himself had also comprehended many ancient techniques. Lei Ming's gains were even greater than Ziqin's, and he had a satisfied smile on his face every day. Lei Ming often said that as long as he left this place and returned to the Lei clan, he would definitely be able to make the Lei clan rise again. In the blink of an eye, Ziqin had already stayed here for more than a year. Other than the heavenly thunder seal, he hadn't obtained any other Xiantian techniques. However, he had obtained many Hotian techniques. These techniques could be left for the heavenly barbarian pavilion or the Wuji sect in the future, but they weren't of much use to the current Ziqin. In a year, Lei Ming had changed the most. His battle strength was almost 10 times stronger than when Ziqin had first met him. After refining a lot of lightning liquid essence, Lei Ming's battle strength had finally reached Tang Yun's level, and he wasn't far from the Xiantian realm. Lei Ming had also sworn in front of Ziqin that he wouldn't leave this place unless he used the lightning liquid essence to break through to the Xiantian realm. Ziqin was influenced by Lei Ming. He felt that if he didn't obtain a few Xiantian techniques in this place of great opportunities, he would be letting himself down. Therefore, Ziqin, who was about to leave, decided to stay here for another year. During this year, other challengers had arrived, but no one dared to bully Lei Ming, and no one dared to bully him. Ziqin took the dragon and began to search this area alone. During this period, Ziqin crossed mountains and rivers, and he searched mountain after mountain and explored river after river. However, it seemed that he had no fate with Xiantian techniques. During this period, Ziqin even returned to the place where he had obtained the heavenly thunder seal. He wanted to sense it again, but to no avail. Ziqin's karmic luck seemed to have been completely depleted. In the end, he couldn't even see Hotian techniques, let alone Xiantian techniques. Furthermore, Ziqin suddenly had a strange feeling that he didn't fit in with this world. Why did he feel so out of tune with the world that he was in? Ziqin felt very strange. Until half a year later, Ziqin saw Xia Xian again. "It's you, Ziqin." Seeing Ziqin, Xia Xian's face was full of surprise. You didn't die." Seeing Xia Xian, Ziqin was also very surprised, but he was even more surprised by Xia Xian's words. Therefore he asked, "You don't know?" "Know what?" Xia Xian asked doubtfully. "I came out a year and a half ago." Ziqin explained. "What's going on? Didn't I see you get hit by the four-colored energy?" Ziqin smiled and said, "That was just a doppelganger." Hearing this, Xia Xian nodded, paused, and said, "Sorry, I couldn't help you that time." "It's okay, it's all in the past." Seeing Ziqin so carefree, Xia Xian asked, "What about them? Did they all leave?" "And you can say that." "What do you mean by can say that?" Xia Xian was very confused. Zhong Meng left and entered the ancient road gathering place. "What about the others?" Xia Xian asked. Ziqin said frankly, "I killed the others." "Killed them all?" Xia Xian was stunned. Then he smiled bitterly and said, "Since I left last time, I went out alone to try my luck. I've been comprehending techniques for the past year and a half. During this time, I sensed their summons, but I didn't leave. Unexpectedly, they all died." Ziqin didn't dwell on this question, but followed Xia Xian's words and asked, "You've been comprehending techniques for the past year and a half, so you've obtained a Xiantian technique." Xia Xian didn't hide and nodded. "I've obtained a Xiantian ancient technique, but I've just started, and its power is not as good as some Hotian techniques. Zi Chen was a little unaccustomed to Xia Xian's honesty, and he didn't know what to say. You haven't left yet, so you must be looking for a Xiantian technique. Before Zi Chen could answer, Xia Xian said again, Good, the place where I've been comprehending Xiantian techniques is not far from here. I'll take you there. Zi Chen was stunned again. A Xiantian technique was actually given away so easily. Xia Xian spread out his hands and said, I've already comprehended it, and that thing won't disappear. It's the same for two people. Moreover, you're on the strongest ancient road, and I'm on the first grade ancient road. It seems that there won't be any hatred between us. If I'm lucky enough to leave here alive, maybe we can even become friends. Xia Xian's honesty surprised Zi Chen, but he wasn't a pretentious person. After nodding, he said, Then I'll have to trouble you. Xia Xian's attitude completely changed Zi Chen's impression of him. The two of them hadn't interacted much in the starting ground. At most, they would nod and smile when they met, which could count as a greeting. However, back then, Zi Chen had felt that Xia Xian's combat power was extraordinary, and he hadn't wanted to offend him. Now that he had come into contact with Xia Xian, Zi Chen found that Xia Xian was also a sentimental person. At the very least, he hadn't been influenced by the true atmosphere of the martial heaven continent. As they continued forward, the two of them began to talk more. Zi Chen wasn't a good talker, so Xia Xian would usually start the conversation first. However, Xia Xian tactfully avoided asking him about his background. The two of them continued onward. Xia Xian was extremely interested in the strongest ancient road. When Zi Chen told him about his experiences, Xia Xian sighed repeatedly. No wonder you're so powerful. The environment of your ancient road was truly vile. It's a miracle that you were able to survive. Just as they were talking, the two of them arrived at the place Xia Xian had told them about. Looking ahead, Xia Xian's smile suddenly froze. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. What is it? Zi Chen looked at Xia Xian. Xia Xian pointed to an empty space in front of them. Here, the ancient Xiantian skill I was comprehending was right here. But why is it gone? When Zi Chen heard this, his expression changed slightly. Zi Chen, you have to believe me. I'm not lying to you. Seeing Zi Chen's expression change, Xia Xian hastily tried to explain. Zi Chen didn't say anything. He just stared blankly ahead. Zi Chen, Xia Xian tried to explain, but even he felt that his explanation was pointless. Just now it had been there, but now it was gone. Who would believe him? Zi Chen waved his hand, indicating for Xia Xian to stop. Then he looked at Xia Xian. There's no need to explain. I believe you. It seems this world really can't hold me. I should leave. What do you mean? Xia Xian looked at Zi Chen. Zi Chen smiled. You'll understand once you continue searching for the ancient Xiantian skills here. Xia Xian felt guilty that he didn't bring Zi Chen to the Xiantian skills, but unfortunately he couldn't impart them to him. The appearance of Xiantian skills was legendary. It was said that they appeared naturally between heaven and earth, and before one's strength reached a certain level, they couldn't be imparted to each other. Zi Chen was deeply aware of this. Every time he taught Lei Ming the 9 flashes of lightning and 7 flashes of thunder and lightning, the light spot of inheritance condensed in his hand would automatically dissipate, as if it had triggered some kind of rule and was destroyed by the rule, unable to pass it to Lei Ming. Zi Chen felt like he couldn't fit in with this world anymore. He knew it was time to leave. As for Xiantian skills, Zi Chen didn't have any extravagant hopes. The world didn't allow him to conclude that Xiantian skills were valued in their quality, not in their quantity. After all, Zi Chen had only reached the 2nd level of a Xiantian strength skill after decades of studying it. His extreme speed movement technique, 7th flash, hadn't improved much. His heavenly thunder seal's improvement was also negligible. Zi Chen and Xia Xian returned to the Silver World. Zi Chen entered the Silver World and stayed there for half a month. Chapter 847. After stepping out of the 4-8 Ancient Road, he arrived at the 4-9 Ancient Road. This was supposed to be a trading ground on the Ancient Road. However, at this moment, the sky was filled with yellow sand and there was not even a single blade of grass. Everything was, as Zichen had guessed. There were still no resources to exchange, no people, and nothing with vitality. Zichen did not stay here for long. He quickly found the exit and stepped into it. Zichen had officially stepped onto the 5-9 Ancient Road. If he could reach the 5-9 Ancient Road alive, he would definitely be able to reach the first gathering place on the Ancient Road. After arriving at the 5-9 Ancient Road, Zichen felt that there was spiritual energy of heaven and earth in this world. He was obviously shocked. Along the way, the number of places that had spiritual energy of heaven and earth was less than 5. Zichen was in a dense forest. There were towering ancient trees around him. The thick roots of the trees were exposed, and they looked like horned dragons. Zichen was in the air with a barbaric dragon flying beside him. Its petite body was emitting a green light as it looked down at its surroundings. Zichen spread out his spiritual thoughts to explore this world. Zichen did not find any danger wherever his spiritual thoughts passed. Zichen's spiritual thoughts continued to spread out. All he saw were ancient trees. He did not even see a small animal. These ancient trees were a few meters thick, as if they had existed for countless years. Moreover, Zichen realized that the dense forest he was in was like a sea of trees. It was boundless. His spiritual thoughts spread out for tens of miles, but he did not find any flat land. What a huge forest! Zichen retracted his spiritual thoughts and sighed in his heart. His spiritual thoughts did not detect any danger. Zichen could not help but wonder if this place was like the 4-8 Ancient Road where there were many opportunities waiting for him. Moreover, he did not find any abnormalities. Zichen guessed that the danger might be outside the forest. He needed to pass through the sea of trees. Just as Zichen was guessing, 2 eyes suddenly appeared on an ancient tree that was a few meters thick and a few hundred meters tall behind Zichen. These were 2 lantern-like eyes, and the 2 pale green pupils were exceptionally bright. The ancient tree opened its eyes, and its pale green eyes turned towards Zichen. It stared at Zichen, and Zichen seemed to have sensed it. He immediately turned around. After turning around, Zichen suddenly saw the ancient tree with its eyes wide open. He couldn't help but jump in fright. His expression instantly changed as he exclaimed, "Tree demon!" Since it had grown eyes, the ancient tree had naturally turned into a demon. After exclaiming in alarm, the dragon's soul spear appeared in Zichen's hand. Elemental energy surged around his body, making him extremely vigilant. The tree demons that had opened their eyes did not immediately attack Zichen. Instead, they stared at Zichen with their frightening green eyes. However, as one of the ancient trees opened its eyes, the other ancient trees around Zichen also opened their eyes. Zichen's expression changed greatly. They were all tree demons, all of them. There were more than 10 ancient trees around Zichen, but they were all tree demons. When they opened their eyes and saw Zichen, their pale green eyes turned cold. Boom! In the next moment, the tree demons made their move. Countless dark green branches, like long snakes, swept towards Zichen and the Torvosaurus. In the sky and on the ground, the number of branches was no less than thousands, tens of thousands. They formed a perfect defense as they coiled around Zichen and the Torvosaurus. PFFF! PFFF! The long spear in Zichen's hand danced. Streaks of spear light flashed past, and the green branches were cut off. However, only 7 or 8 of them were cut off. For the tens of thousands of branches, there was no effect at all. Moreover, the branches that were cut off were like long snakes. They were actually slithering on the ground, struggling. Dark green liquid flowed out from the cut. Zichen wanted to wave his long spear a few more times, but suddenly he felt a pressure from the sky. Under this pressure, Zichen's advantage in the air was instantly cut off, and he directly fell down. This is Forbidden Sky Domain. When his body fell, Zi-Chin let out a cry of alarm. When he landed, numerous green branches had already coiled around Zi-Chen's body. They were densely packed, like long snakes strangling Zi-Chin. Zi-Chan was surrounded by numerous branches. Then, the branches began to shrink, tightly constricting Zi-Chin. During this period of time, there were also many branches that tried to pierce through Zi-Chen's body. Zi-Chen's situation was not good, but the Torvosaurus's side was not any better. When the green branches covered the sky, the Torvosaurus's body also fell to the ground. His body was petite and couldn't display any powerful strength. Therefore, he immediately let out a loud dragon roar, and his body became extremely huge. However, his body was also tightly constricted by the numerous branches. Then, the branches began to retract their strength, and the Torvosaurus straightened up in the sky. A dragon roar resounded. The Torvosaurus was trying to struggle. However, after 2 roars, the Torvosaurus immediately closed his mouth, because these branches were actually trying to enter his body through his mouth. Damn it, why is it like this? The dragon's soul spear in Zi-Chen's hand had already left his hand. He also tried to break free, but he found that it was useless. These branches were extremely tough and elastic, and were very difficult to break. Moreover, these branches were also able to suppress spiritual sense. At this moment, Zi-Chan was unable to release his spiritual sense and was unable to see what was happening outside. The tree demon's eyes were still cold as it stared at the 2 lumps of trees, one big and one small. On the surface of the lumps of trees, numerous branches were wriggling, and they looked like green snakes. The lumps of trees would occasionally expand and rumble. Zi-Chin and the Torvosaurus were trying to break them apart with powerful energy, but it was useless. When the energy in their bodies surged, the branches would automatically loosen up to dissolve the energy. Once the energy dissipated, the branches would close up again. During this period of time, there were also branches that tried to enter Zi-Chen's body through his mouth, nose, eyes, and ears. The strange tree demon caused Zi-Chen's expression to change greatly. Moreover, the tenacious and defensive branches made Zi-Chen feel helpless. Powerful and tyrannical attacks were useless at this moment. Suddenly, Zi-Chen seemed to have thought of something, and a cold lightning flashed through his mind. The energy around his body was no longer surging violently, but slowly flowed out from all parts of his body and became gentle. This was golden energy, and it carried a blazing feeling. It was like tiny golden snakes, and after leaving Zi-Chen's body, it coiled around the branches. As the blazing energy spread, Zi-Chen clearly felt that many branches began to tremble, as if they were afraid. At this moment, the extreme yang energy was like a gentle golden snake. Other than blazing heat, there was no destructive aura spreading out. Soon, the lumps of trees that Zi-Chen was in were filled with golden light, and the lumps of trees were emitting brilliant golden light. After that, Zi-Chen detonated this energy. Boom! This was pure Xiantian energy, and after it exploded, it possessed a destructive power. Above the lumps of trees, crackling sounds could be heard. Under the devastation of the golden lightning snakes, many branches exploded, turning into tiny pieces that fell to the ground. Zi-Chin took the opportunity to rush out. After breaking free from the lumps of trees, Zi-Chan saw that the Torvosaurus was still there. He shouted, "Torvosaurus, quickly shrink!" While he was speaking, Zi-Chan rushed towards the lumps of trees where the Torvosaurus was. However, during this time, even more branches swept towards Zi-Chan. Facing these branches, Zi-Chan did not dodge and only continuously released the extreme yuan energy in his body. After the extreme yuan energy coiled around the branches, Zi-Chin detonated them again. Everywhere Zi-Chin passed, the branches exploded. When he arrived in front of the Torvosaurus, the lumps of trees had already shrunk. Zi Chen pressed his right hand on the lumps of trees, and the golden yuan energy quickly soaked all the branches like flowing water, and then detonated them again. The branches instantly shattered, and the Torvosaurus successfully escaped. After escaping, the Torvosaurus turned into a streak of green light and coiled around Zi Chen's waist. Just as the Torvosaurus coiled around Zi Chen, an overwhelming number of branches once again coiled around Zi Chen. Soon, Zi Chen's figure was submerged once again. However, this time, the lumps of trees were much bigger than before. Because Zi Chen had propped up a 2-meter golden light shield, all the branches were outside of the golden light shield. The branches were very tough, but their offensive power was somewhat lacking. Zi Chen's extreme yuan energy shield was able to last for a period of time, but it was only for a short period of time. Because there were too many branches, the light shield had to withstand hundreds or thousands of attacks or squeezes every breath. Damn it! Just a dozen treants are so difficult to deal with. Zi Chen's face was incomparably gloomy. At this moment, he had a powerful battle strength, but he was unable to use it. There were simply too many branches, so many that Zi Chen could barely move. After 2 breaths of time, the light shield's radiance had become extremely dim. Helpless, Zi Chen could only once again inject yuan energy into the light shield. This was not a long-term solution. He had to think of a way to break out of this place and leave. Otherwise, Zi Chen would be exhausted to death here. These branches were very tough, and forcefully attacking them was simply a waste of energy. He could only slowly extend his energy like before and then detonate them. Although this method was effective, the branches were simply endless. Zi Chen even suspected that even if he exhausted all the energy in his body, he might not be able to shatter all the branches. Let's look at the situation first. Following the extension of his extreme yuan energy, Zi Chen once again exploded the branches around him. His vision was restored, but in less than a breath of time, even more branches swept towards Zi Chen. Damn it! It seems that if I don't kill the treants, it will be useless no matter how many branches I shatter. From start to finish, Zi Chen had already broken nearly 1,000 branches, but the treants did not react at all. Zi Chen guessed that these branches were an extension of yuan energy and were not afraid of consumption at all. Therefore, Zi Chen decided to kill the treants first. But with his speed, it was almost impossible for him to walk to the treants. Just as Zi Chen broke through the cluster of branches for the 3rd time, a dazzling light erupted from his body. Then, 2 rays of light, 1 gold and 1 silver, shot in 2 directions. The 2 doppelgangers were formed from energy. In the past, they were emitting a tyrannical energy, but at this moment, the tyrannical energy was useless. Thus, when all the branches wrapped around their bodies, they would slowly channel their ultimate elemental energy into their bodies. Regardless of whether it was extreme yang or extreme yin, they both had the destructive effect of lightning. Therefore, every time the branches wrapped around them, the 2 doppelgangers would be able to quickly explode the branches and approach the treants at the same time. However, in this situation where they had to expend energy every 2 steps, the consumption was also great. Chapter 848. The 2 doppelgangers finally arrived in front of the tree demon. They looked up at the towering tree demon, their eyes expressionless. The tree demon's green eyes also saw the doppelgangers. Just as the doppelgangers were about to unleash a powerful attack to destroy the tree demon, the sky suddenly darkened. A thick tree trunk flew out from the side, like a sharp blade that emitted a green light, ruthlessly striking towards the doppelgangers. The tree trunk came at an extreme speed, bringing with it a tremendous force. A sharp whistle sounded in the air. This kind of attack could be blocked by the doppelgangers at their peak, but at this moment, the 2 doppelgangers had consumed a great deal of energy. Whether it was speed or strength, they were lacking. Zi Chen could see everything that the doppelgangers saw. Once the tree trunk arrived, the doppelgangers would be destroyed. He decisively shouted, "Explode!" Boom! Boom! The light on the two doppelgangers became increasingly dazzling, and then they exploded. The doppelgangers were pure elemental energy doppelgangers. They didn't have a Yuan Dan, although their combat strength was comparable to a powerful Hotian realm martial artist. The power of their self-detonation was far inferior. The self-detonation of a Hotian realm martial artist would probably immediately turn this place into a charred black. Although the doppelganger's self-detonation power was weaker, the pure elemental energy explosion still contained an unimaginable destructive power. The destructive power turned into a storm that swept out in all directions. The whistling tree trunk that came into contact with this destructive storm instantly exploded. At the same time, the storm continued to spread. Some of the nearby branches fell on them, causing these tough branches to instantly explode. Nearly 100 branches were broken, but the toughness of these branches was still terrifying. Even more destructive energy swept towards the tree demon. As this energy wreaked havoc, a sharp and ear-piercing sound was emitted from the mouth formed under the tree demon's eyes. Zi-Chin heard 2 sharp screams and knew that the tree demon had been severely injured. Many of the branches that were wrapped around him automatically retracted after the screams. This method was indeed effective. Zi-Chen's eyes lit up. Although it was a bit slow, as long as he could kill the tree demon, it was fine. Just now, he had consumed a great deal of extreme yang energy. Around Zi-Chen's body, extreme yin energy began to spread. When this energy gushed out from the cracks of the tree and filled the entire tree, Zi-Chen detonated this energy. The tree burst open with a loud bang, and many of the branches burst into pieces. The broken branches struggled on the ground like broken green snakes. Zi-Chin stood in place without moving, and a blinding light burst out from his body. Amidst the strong light, a gold and a silver light shot out at high speed, one from the left and one from the right, heading straight for the injured tree demon. It had only been a short time since he had arrived at the first-level world, but the elemental energy in Zi-Chen's body was constantly being consumed. In just a short period of time, he had used 2 clones, used several energy attacks, and maintained the light barrier. Zi-Chen's energy was gradually running out. As his energy was depleted, the golden light barrier was on the verge of collapsing. Zi-Chen decisively took out a mid-grade origin liquid and swallowed it 1 drop at a time. After the transformation of his elemental energy, Zi-Chen's recovery rate was also astonishingly high. After swallowing a total of 18 drops of mid-grade elemental liquid, Zi-Chen's previously undepleted elemental energy was finally restored to its peak. While Zi-Chen was swallowing the elemental liquid, the 2 clones finally slowly approached the injured tree demon. At the same time, according to Zi-Chen's instructions, their bodies once again exploded. Another 2 earth-shattering explosions rang out. The gold and silver destructive energy completely submerged the ancient tree. A mournful and sharp cry rang out in the next moment, accompanied by a cracking sound. The tree demon had been injured previously, so there weren't as many branches blocking the clones as before. When the clones reached the tree demon's side, they didn't consume as much energy as before. They directly exploded, and the terrifying energy directly broke the tree demon's trunk. After the trunk was broken, the thick trunk fell to the ground, letting out 2 booming sounds. When the ancient tree was broken, it meant that the tree demon was dead. The branches that had extended previously also exploded, and Zi-Chin immediately felt a bit less pressure. With a method to kill the tree demon, the next step was much easier. Zi-Chen used his energy to break open the tree and send the 2 clones out. The task of killing the tree demon fell on the 2 clones. However, this time, Zi-Chin already had experience. In order to save resources and increase efficiency, when he released the clones, he signaled them to go in the same direction and attack the same target. After the 2 clones flew out, they put up a light shield on their shoulders. One of them was in charge of defense, while the other was in charge of attacking the twining branches. The two clones worked together with a clear division of labor. During the process of moving forward, they didn't need to stop and could reach the tree demon at the fastest speed possible. When they arrived in front of the tree demon, the two clones attacked at the same time. This way, the two clones could kill one tree demon with a single strike, and at the same time, they could also seriously injure the second tree demon. In this way, after repeated attacks, the number of tree demons decreased. After 2 hours, Zi Chen's elemental energy had recovered 3 times. The 15 tree demons were finally all killed. The tree demon was already dead, and its branches either scattered or fell to the ground. The ground was covered with scattered branches and ancient tree trunks. Not far away, there was a thick tree trunk. Bursts of green smoke were coming out from the broken parts of the trunk. Zi Chen's dragon soul spear fell a few dozen meters away. After the last tree demon was killed, Zi Chen had consumed more than half of his elemental energy. He sat down cross-legged and quietly recovered his elemental energy. In order to save resources, he didn't continue to consume elemental liquid. Instead, he relied on the surrounding spiritual energy to recover. He transformed into a dragon that was dozens of meters long and laid down beside Zi Chen to protect him. The spiritual energy in this place was denser, and Zi Chen used 4 hours to completely recover. After recovering, Zi Chen opened his eyes, stood up, and looked around. After the 15 tree demons were killed, Zi Chen was surrounded by a spacious area. The ancient tree closest to Zi Chen was still 300 meters away from Zi Chen. Zi Chen raised his head to look at the blue sky, but there was a helpless expression on his face. The sky restriction domain was still in effect, and they couldn't fly. The two couldn't leave through the air, and the only way was to pass through the group of tree demons. Obviously, the danger of this ancient road came from the tree demons. They were densely packed and endless. The previous battle had already given Zi Chen some understanding of the tree demons. There were hundreds of thousands of tree demons here, and according to Zi Chen's speed, he wouldn't be able to kill them all and reach the transmission station even if he killed them all in dozens or hundreds of years. Moreover, Zi Chen was deep in the forest, and he didn't know where the transmission station was. Therefore, pure brute force was useless. If he wanted to pass through here, he would need to have extraordinary control over his innate elemental energy to kill the tree demons in one strike. Zi Chen didn't know if it was a coincidence that he appeared here, but he was sure of one thing. If he hadn't transformed his elemental energy on the 4-8 ancient road, he would definitely have died here today. There were also 15 tree demons in front of him. If Zi Chen attracted one, he would definitely alarm the other 14. The tree demon's defense was not strong, but the branches were more difficult to deal with. The only thing Zi Chen had to do was to pass through the branches and kill the tree demon. However, he had not found a faster way to pass through the branches. Let's kill a wave and leave one to experiment. Zi Chen's eyes flashed coldly as he strode forward. It was obviously useless to fight force with force, so the dragon soul spear wasn't very useful here. In fact, it couldn't be said to be useless. If he was strong enough, for example, when he reached the mortal origin realm, Zi Chen could easily destroy this place, but this was just an example. The Torvosaurus didn't follow Zi Chen this time, but stayed in the distance. It stayed behind so that if Zi Chen was in danger, the Torvosaurus could take the opportunity to help. Pow! There was a thick tree trunk in front of the Torvosaurus, which was the eye of the tree demons. The Torvosaurus slammed down with its claw, and the tree trunk exploded, sending wood chips flying everywhere. Zi Chen was thinking about how to quickly kill the tree demons when he was startled by the explosion. He turned his head to look at the Torvosaurus. The Torvosaurus smashed the tree trunk, but its sharp claws reached for the broken tree roots and dug out a fist-sized hard object. This is the monster core of the tree demons. Seeing the Torvosaurus digging out the hard object, Zi Chen walked back curiously. The hard object was gray, like old skin, and abnormally hard. The monster core of a beast was transparent and emitted light. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't look like a monster core. He didn't find anything with his spiritual senses. During this time, the Torvosaurus found the same thing on another tree demon, but there was only one monster core on each tree demon. There were a total of 15 monsters. Since there was one monster core on each tree demon, it shouldn't be much different from a monster core. Looking at the 15 hard objects and the endless ancient trees in front of him, Zi-chan wanted to find out more, so he used his strength to cut open the hard object. As the hard object was cut open, liquid flowed out. The liquid emitted a dark green light and contained dense spiritual energy. Could this be the heart of the tree? Zi-chan was puzzled. The dark green liquid was contained by Zi-chan's elemental energy. Zi-chan dipped his finger in a drop and put it in his mouth. He found that the liquid was actually sweet. The liquid contained dense spiritual energy and had a recovery effect on elemental energy. I can use it as a resource. Zi-chan decisively kept it as a resource for the future. He was sure that it was the heart of the tree demons. The Torvosaurus beside him revealed a greedy look. Zi-chan gave the liquid in front of him to the Torvosaurus. The Torvosaurus swallowed it in one gulp, as if it had eaten a delicacy. Its eyes slightly narrowed, and its face was filled with enjoyment. Zi-chan turned and walked towards the ancient trees. Sure enough, after waking up one of the tree demons, the other tree demons woke up one after another. Numerous tree branches swept towards Zi-chan, and Zi-chan was instantly pulled to the center of the 15 tree demons. Just like before, Zi-chan used his doppelganger to kill the other tree demons. This time, the efficiency was very fast. In less than 2 hours, he killed 14 tree demons. As for the other tree demon, Zi-chan planned to kill it himself. There were still thousands of tree branches surrounding Zi-chan. After exploding a wave, Zi-chan jumped out of the encirclement. As soon as he jumped out of the encirclement, the tree branches were like long snakes, crazily rushing towards Zi-chan. Light flashed under Zi-chan's feet, and he used extreme speed footwork to retreat. This retreat took him 100 meters, until he was out of the tree branches' attack range. Thousands of tree branches stretched out straight, 1 meter away from Zi-chan. They wriggled up and down, trying to attack Zi-chan. With experience, Zi-chan knew that these tree branches were indeed an extension of magic energy. They weren't afraid of consumption at all. No matter how many he blew up, they could quickly regrow. Chapter 849. Zi-chan's yuanli began to extend, but compared to the tens of thousands of tree ants, Zi-chan could only extend a few dozen strands of yuanli, and these strands of yuanli could only extend 2 meters. The yuanli extended 2 meters and wrapped around the branches. Before the yuanli could extend any further, the yuanli began to lose control and exploded. The yuanli exploded, and the dozens of branches in front of him were blown apart. But in the blink of an eye, a green light flashed at the end of the broken branches, and the branches grew back. Before he could kill the tree ants quickly, the only tree ant left was Zi-chan's sparring partner. Zi-chen stood outside the Trent's attack range and controlled his yuanli to extend bit by bit. These yuanli were like golden snakes, spreading to the branches and wrapping around them. 2 meters. This was Zi-chan's current limit. After 2 meters, the yuanli would lose control and explode. Zi-chan experimented over and over again, and soon his yuanli was depleted. Although it had been more than a year since his yuanli had transformed to the Xiantian realm, he had not carefully felt this Xiantian yuanli. In the past year, Zi-chan had spent most of his time searching for Xiantian techniques. Moreover, the transformation of the Xiantian yuanli was a qualitative change, and Zi-chan found it very difficult to control it. In the past, Zi-chan was used to using violent yuanli to kill. He had never realized that he was lacking in controlling Li's yuanli. This time, after encountering the tree ants, he finally discovered this flaw. The yuanli in his body was quickly depleted. Zi-chan retreated a few dozen meters and began to recover. Sitting cross-legged, Zi-Chin took out the Trent's heart. After breaking it open with force, he swallowed the dark green juice. There were countless ancient trees and treants here, and naturally there were also many Trent's hearts. Zi-Chan was not worried about consuming Li's Yuanli, so he had to make the best use of his time to recover. The spiritual energy contained in the Trent's heart was refined and turned into pure energy, restoring Zi-Chen's abdomen. During the process of absorbing this energy, Zi-Chen discovered that there was a gentle energy in the refined Trent's heart. After this energy entered abdomen and merged with his Yuanli, it seemed to have changed his Yuanli. Soon, the energy in the Trent's heart was refined, and the vague feeling disappeared. After refining the second Trent's heart, the feeling reappeared, and Zi-Chen's Yuanli also recovered. After recovering his Yuanli, Zi-Chen once again stepped forward and fought with the treants. After reaching the Trent's heart, he started releasing his Li's Xiantian Yuanli. Zi's Xiantian Yuanli was of his Li's Yuanli. Very quickly, the elemental energy coiled around the branch and reached 2 meters. Previously, Zi-Chen's elemental energy could only reach 2 meters. But now, after 2 meters, the elemental energy was still within his range of control. Zi-Chen was overjoyed and continued to extend the Trent's heart. After extending the Trent's heart by 10 centimeters, the Yuanli went out of control and exploded. With an improvement of 10 centimeters, Zi-Chen's face lit up with joy, but he wasn't sure if it was because of the Trent's heart or because of his continuous practice. It didn't matter which reason it was, because regardless of the former or the latter, Zi-Chen's control over the Yuanli had increased. Following that, Zi-Chen practiced with great confidence, and Zi-Chen's improvement could be clearly seen. After a day, he could already control the same amount of Yuanli and was able to extend the Trent's heart to 2.5 meters. Zi-Chen was extremely satisfied with his progress of half a meter. After a day, 14 Trent's hearts were completely consumed by Zi-Chen. As for the other 14, because the treant was still alive, the Torvosaurus didn't go forward to collect them. Just when Zi-Chen's Yuanli was about to be exhausted, Zi-Chen suddenly jumped towards the treant. Just as Zi-Chen moved, thousands of Trent's branches frantically swept towards Zi-Chen. Bang! The energy around Zi-Chen's body surged. As the energy surged, he knocked away hundreds of Trent's branches that were about to wrap around him. After the Trent's branches were knocked away, new Trent's branches quickly flew towards him. Zi-Chen took the opportunity to turn into a streak of lightning and rapidly approach the treant. During this period of time, the Trent's branches constantly flickered, trying to obstruct Zi-Chen. However, there was only one treant, and it was impossible to obstruct Zi-Chen. Zi-Chen quickly arrived in front of the Trent's branches, but a whistling sound could be heard. Numerous thick Trent's trunks attacked Zi-Chen from both sides. A whistling sound could be heard as the Trent's trunks contained a powerful force. Zi-Chen's body flashed like a streak of lightning, flashing through the gaps between the Trent's trunks. At the same time, Xiantian Yuanli appeared in both of his hands. One of his hands was yin and the other was yang, transforming into 2 huge balls of light. Then, the 2 energies fiercely bombarded the Trent's roots. The 2 energies fused into the Trent's roots, and under the control of Zi-Chen's will, they exploded with a loud bang. The 2 energies approached each other in the Trent's roots, and wherever they passed, sharp cuts would appear on the Trent's roots, as if they were cut by a sharp blade. When the 2 energies approached each other, an even more violent explosion sound could be heard. The Trent's trunk, which was several meters thick, was like a wall, and was broken with a loud bang. A miserable shriek came from the Trent's mouth. Soon after, its several thick Trent's trunks tumbled backwards. After landing on the ground, a loud bang resounded, causing the earth to shake. Zi-Chen could kill 1 treant with brute force, but if there were too many of them, Zi-Chen's speed would no longer be an advantage, and brute force would be useless. When the last treant died, the Torvosaurus also flew over and began to collect the Trent's hearts. Chen only needed 2 Trent's hearts to recover. Therefore, he left the extra one for the Torvosaurus to enjoy. It could be considered as the Torvosaurus's reward for collecting the Trent's heart. In the following days, Chen spent his time fighting against the Treants. He first used his doppelganger to kill 14 Treants, and then used the last Treant to practice. When he finished devouring all the Trent's hearts, he would then make his move to kill the Treant. Time became monotonous and boring. But to Chen, who was growing every day, time was very fulfilling. 10 days later, Chen was able to control 40 strands of yuan li. He could now extend his yuan li to a length of 10 meters. In these 10 days, Chen's control over yuan li had naturally become more skillful. Chen was very satisfied with his progress of 8 meters in 10 days. However, he did not intend to continue practicing the extension of his yuan li. If he wanted to increase his control over yuan li, the only way was to continuously increase the amount of yuan li. Currently, Chen could control 40 strands of yuan li to extend his yuan li to a length of 10 meters. Chen tried to control more. On the second day, Chen increased the amount of yuan li by 10 strands. This behavior of wanting to eat a big butterball in one gulp caused Chen's control over yuan li to shrink to 2 meters. Once it exceeded 2 meters, the 50 strands of yuan li would definitely explode. After a day, Chen did not make any progress. Regarding this, Chen concluded that he was too greedy. On the third day, Chen extended his 40 strands of yuan li to a length of 10 meters. He controlled these Xiantian yuan li well. At the same time, he extended his 41st strand of yuan li to a length of 10 meters. The results of following the rules were very obvious. Chen was actually able to successfully extend 1 strand of yuan li's yuan li in a day. Regarding this, the joy on his face became even stronger. If he could increase 1 strand of yuan li's yuan li every day, he would be able to extend thousands of strands in 8 to 10 years. On the 4th day, after killing 14 tree demons, Chen did not extend his 42nd strand of yuan li. Instead, he carefully familiarized himself with the 41 strands of yuan li until they were completely under his control. Then, Chen extended his 42nd strand of yuan li. After a day, Chen succeeded again. On the 5th day, Chen familiarized himself with the yuan li again before trying to extend his yuan li. This way, Chen did not encounter any bottlenecks. Furthermore, as the number of tree hearts increased, Chen could clearly feel that the Xiantian yuan li had changed. Compared to before, the Xiantian yuan li was still as powerful as before, but it was more restrained. When the energy was restrained, when it suddenly erupted, its power would be less than before. As time passed, the speed at which the 2 doppelgangers worked together to kill the tree demons became faster and faster. One day, Chen suddenly had an idea. Could the doppelgangers be like him and use the same method to kill the tree demons? Furthermore, because the doppelgangers only had 1 strand of yuan li, it would allow Chen to have a clearer perception and better control of his yuan li. Hence, after killing 14 tree demons, the 2 doppelgangers also joined in to control yuan li's yuan li. With the addition of the doppelgangers, Chen could clearly sense the changes in his yuan li. Furthermore, with the cooperation of the doppelgangers, Chen's progress was very fast. Subsequently, the Torvosaurus, who had nothing to do, also joined in. Very quickly, a year passed. During this year, because of the addition of the doppelgangers, Chen's understanding of the extreme yin and extreme yang yuan li had deepened. Furthermore, the yuan li that Chen could now control was half yin and half yang. The amount of yuan li that he could control had also reached over 500 strands. Such a huge improvement was all because of the 2 doppelgangers. Over 500 strands of yuan li, half yin and half yang, exploded, creating a vacuum that was tens of meters wide in an instant. As Chen refined more and more tree hearts, Zichen's progress also became faster and faster. By the second year, the amount of yuanli that Zichen could control had already exceeded 1,000 strands. 1,000 strands of yuanli could be released from his body, extending over 10 meters. It was extremely frightening. There were resources here, and he could also train his yuanli. It could be said that it was a good place that was hard to come by. To Zichen, there was still plenty of time. It was not yet time for him to be rejected by the world. Hence, Zichen stayed here for another year. In the third year, the amount of yuanli that Zichen could control had already exceeded 2,000 strands. The reason why he could double that in a year was also because of the breakthrough in the strength of Zichen's doppelgangers. Originally, the two doppelgangers were only at the peak of the Hotian realm. Their energy was not yet at the Xiantian realm. However, Zichen used the doppelgangers every day for 2 years, and the doppelgangers transformed again. But now, Zichen and his two doppelgangers had the battle prowess to contend against 3 Xiantian realm experts of the same level. Not only that, they could easily kill them. If it was purely about restraining, then Zichen could deal with 5 of them. 1 against 5. This was an extremely frightening number. 2,000 strands of yuan li that extended over 10 meters could be said to be several hundred times stronger than 3 years ago. After staying here for 3 years, the 2,000 strands of Xiantian yuan li could completely pass through this place. Chapter 850. In the following half a month, Zichen gave up on controlling the 2,000 strands of Xiantian yuan li and focused on controlling the 1,000 strands. Zichen wholeheartedly controlled the 1,000 strands of Xiantian yuan li. Half a month later, Zichen was able to control the 1,000 strands of Xiantian yuan li at will. It was time for him to leave. The barbaric dragon turned into a streak of green light and coiled around Zichen's waist. After his yuan li recovered to its peak, Zichen strode forward. His body was surrounded by a golden energy shield. For the past 3 years, Zichen had been walking in a straight line. The tree demons in the deeper parts of the forest were more sensitive and had already awakened when he was still tens of meters away. Swish, swish. The awakened tree demons quickly controlled their branches and formed an inescapable net. Under this situation, Zichen couldn't dodge at all. He allowed the branches to surround him and drag him to the center of the 15 tree demons. Zichen, who was pulled straight by the branches, was about 50 meters away from the surrounding tree demons. This number wasn't accurate, but the difference wouldn't be more than 20 meters. In other words, the furthest tree demon from Zichen was only 70 meters away, and the Xiantian yuan li that Zichen could control was 100 meters away. The defensive light shield around Zichen was just enough to protect him. With the increase in his control, Zichen's light shield also became more tenacious. Zichen, who was being pulled straight, suddenly closed his eyes and allowed the vines to attack the light shield. 1,000 strands of gold and silver elemental energy flowed out of his body and followed the surrounding vines into the distance. At this moment, if someone was in the air, they would be able to see the strands of yuan li entwining the tree demons through the branches. Some of the yuan li entwined the tree demons through the branches, while others through the ground or the air. In the blink of an eye, more than 1,000 strands of yuan li entwined around the 15 tree demons. Each tree demon had dozens of yuan li. Among the yuan li, the amount of yuan li was equal to the amount of yuan li. All the yuan li entwined around the tree demons. Within the light shield, Zichen opened his eyes. Boom! A strand of yuan li exploded. Boom! Boom! Streams of elemental energy exploded. Boom! 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 All of the elemental energy exploded, and explosions came from all directions. Thousands of elemental energies that were hundreds of meters long exploded, and with the impact of the collision between the two types of elemental energy, the area instantly turned into an energy storm. Zichen was at the center of the energy storm. His body could not help but sway left and right, and he could not stand steadily. In his ears, other than the sounds of energy explosions, there were also shrill howls. These were the howls of the treant before its death. Zichen had heard them hundreds of times. Just a few dozen strands of energy were not enough to kill a tree demon. However, among the strands of energy that Zichen had extended, half of them were extreme yin and half of them were extreme yang. The terrifying destructive power produced by the collision of yin and yang was the key to victory. After the energy storm dissipated, Zichen's surroundings were already quiet. The sharp howls had disappeared and the tall ancient trees had collapsed. One attack had easily killed 15 tree demons, and it hadn't consumed much energy. This attack had proven Zichen's growth over the past 3 years. The barbaric dragon turned into a streak of light and rushed towards the dead tree demons. It then used its sharp claws to cut open the bodies of the tree demons and took out their tree hearts. There were a total of 15 tree hearts. Apart from the one it had devoured, the rest were all given to Zichen. Everything was as usual. Zichen smiled as he accepted the tree hearts and continued forward. 3 minutes later, a series of energy explosions echoed once again. Mournful howls kept echoing in his ears. The rumbling sounds of the collapsing tree trunks caused the ground to tremble. All kinds of chaotic sounds lasted for no less than a minute before slowly disappearing. In 4 minutes, Zichen killed a wave of tree demons. Then, the barbaric dragon spent half a minute to collect the tree hearts, while Zichen rested for half a minute. Including the casting time, Zichen needed around 7 minutes to finish his attack. 7 minutes was all it took for Zichen to kill a wave of tree demons. After killing 20 waves of tree demons, Zichen's yuan energy consumption had exceeded 80%. Next, Zichen needed to refine the tree hearts to recover. This sea of trees was very big, as if there was no end to it. Zichen had been moving forward in a straight line, not killing any tree demons along the way. Even so, Zichen could still obtain hundreds to thousands of tree hearts in one day. As for Zichen himself, he had to refine dozens of tree hearts a day. This was not only for the purpose of recovering yuan power, but also for the spiritual energy contained within the tree hearts, which was of great help in controlling yuan power. Zichen's great improvement in just 3 years was naturally due to the help of the tree hearts. As time passed, as a large number of tree demons were killed, Zichen's control also increased. First, it was 1,000 strands of yuan energy. Then it slowly increased until it reached the limit of his control. This kind of killing continued for half a year. In this half a year, Zichen almost didn't sleep or rest, and the number of tree demons he killed was uncountable. And in this 3.5 years of dealing with tree demons, Zichen's entire world had turned green. Now, every time he opened his eyes and saw a green world, he would feel a sense of discomfort and boredom. This world hadn't rejected Zichen yet, but he was the first to reject this world. Moreover, Zichen had a feeling that if he didn't find the exit soon, he would directly collapse. Time had already been monotonously repeating for 3.5 years. Fortunately, after half a year, Zichen finally saw the teleportation platform to leave. However, that huge teleportation platform was also green. Zichen had already been here for a long time. When he saw the teleportation platform in the forest, he didn't hesitate. After killing the tree demons, he flashed and stepped on it. There was still a wave of tree hearts that hadn't been collected yet. Zichen had already declared that he didn't want them. After 3.5 years, Zichen left the ancient road. His gains were the transformation of his doppelganger, the increase in his control of yuan energy, and the acquisition of many tree hearts. When he arrived at the ancient road, there wasn't any heaven and earth spirit energy. Moreover, the world was gray. Zichen let out a deep breath. To him, this world was an extremely normal one. Even if there wasn't any heaven and earth spirit energy, he was still willing to stay here. Following Zichen's arrival, a battle had descended upon this world. With the increase in his control, Chen's energy attacks had become less berserk. Instead, they had become more tenacious and cohesive. It could also be said that they had become more agile. The energy attacks he released were more concentrated and didn't disperse. Naturally, the power of his attacks had also become more powerful. Now, Chen could completely be like the tree demons. He could completely conceal all of his Xiantian true origin and not expose his Yuan energy realm. It was just like how Chen's spiritual sense couldn't detect that the ancient tree was a tree demon. In this fierce battle, Chen began to practice his Xiantian techniques: Heavenly Thunder Seal, Strength Technique, and 9 Lightning Passes. These 3 Xiantian techniques still had a lot of room for improvement. In this ancient world, the Torvosaurus wasn't as lucky as last time. Facing the attacks of numerous creatures, it also had to participate in the battle. Chen and the Torvosaurus fought a bloody battle until they found the exit of this world. When they left this world, Chen had already stayed here for 2 years. In these 2 years, Chen had obtained more materials. His understanding of Xiantian techniques and his combat power had also increased. Next, it was the main style of the Ancient Road battle. Chen fought his way from the Ancient Road to the Ancient Road. For the Ancient Road of the strongest Ancient Road, increasing one's strength through battle was the way to go. After several years of battle, Chen's physical strength once again broke through and reached level 8. With level 8 perfect body, his combat power was much stronger than before. In addition to the Xiantian strength technique that he had comprehended over the years, Chen's combat power had increased greatly. If Chen were to return to the land of chaos now, the patriarchs of the 5 major forces would be respectful to him. The Torvosaurus' strength had also reached the peak of level 8 and was not far from level 9. When he reached the teleportation formation of the Ancient Road, Chen's body was covered in blood. His black robe was soaked in blood, and his entire body was covered in blood. The dragon soul spear in his hand that was originally not stained with blood was also dripping with blood. The green Torvosaurus also looked like it had just walked out of a blood pool. The green light around its body was completely covered by the blood. It had become a blood dragon. Below their feet, there were mountains of corpses and rivers of blood. It was like a world of Azura. The teleportation formation was right in front of them. They would arrive at the Ancient Road in the next moment. Chen's cold and calm heart suddenly became nervous. The human gathering place was right in front of them. However, Chen began to hesitate. His blood-stained face was filled with hesitation, anticipation, and nervousness. It was extremely complicated. He was nervous and worried. He was afraid that he would not be able to find the person he was looking for. Chen stood on the teleportation formation for an hour. Then he took a deep breath and used his elemental energy to shake off the bloodstains on his body. He then changed into a clean set of clothes. The Torvosaurus also appeared in its miniature form. Ancient Road of 5-9, here I come. Chen took a deep breath and stepped onto the teleportation formation. Following the flash of light, Chen's figure disappeared. When Chen reappeared, he realized that he had arrived at a desolate world. There was no spiritual energy of heaven and earth here. There was also no life. It was dead silent. Chen's face, which was full of anticipation, instantly froze. He shouted, "How could this be?" Chen was completely dumbfounded. This was because this place was too similar to the ancient roads of First 9, Second 9, Third 9, and Fourth 9. They were all trading places. However, there was no life. It was dead silent. Where is the ancient road of 5-9? Isn't it the first gathering place of humans? Where is the person? Looking at the dead silent ancient road of 5-9, which did not have even a bit of spiritual energy, Chen shouted loudly. However, there was not even an echo when he shouted. Chen's face was filled with disappointment. Then his face was filled with despair. Do I have to walk all the way to the ancient road of 99 before I can see the person? Zi-chan roared at the sky, but there was no answer. Frustration, unwillingness, and anger appeared in his heart. At this moment, Zi-chen hated this damn ancient road of the strongest trial. After venting for a full hour, Zi-chen flew into the distance. There was really no one here. There was nothing. There was not even a weathered building. Just as Zi-chen was angered until he wanted to curse, he suddenly saw a stone house. Zi-chen was startled. His face was filled with astonishment. The lonely stone house sat on the dead, silent ground. However, before Zi-chen could get close to the stone house, he heard the stone house creak. Then the stone door opened and an old man walked out. Chapter 851. The old man was wearing a sackcloth. He was in high spirits, and his eyes were as sharp as a blade. He swept his gaze across Zi-chen. Suddenly, Zi-chen felt a chill run down his spine. He actually felt a sense of crisis. With just a glance, Zi-chen felt as if he was standing naked in front of the old man. He was completely seen through. His original intention was to go down, but he changed his mind. He looked at the old man with extreme fear. The two of them, one in the sky and one on the ground, stared at each other. The old man's gaze swept across Zi-chen's body. His expression was not cold, but it was definitely not gentle. His gaze shifted, and the old man's eyes fell on the Torvosaurus on his waist. The Torvosaurus also sensed it. It lowered its head and looked at the old man. Seeing the Torvosaurus, the old man's eyes flashed with an undetectable light. His gaze once again fell on Zi-chen. He said indifferently, "You have 6 hours to exchange for resources. 1 hour has passed. Now you have 2.5 hours left." Ah! Zi-chen was startled. He looked at the old man. The old man glanced at Zi-chen again and said coldly, "For hours left." Zi-chen did not understand. He asked, "Senior, I don't know what you mean." 1.5 hours left. The old man did not explain. Instead, he shortened the time by 1 hour again. His voice became cold. Zi-chen's expression changed. He did not understand what the old man meant, but he did not dare to ask again. His figure quickly descended. The moment he landed, an energy light screen appeared in front of the old man. There were some words recorded on it, and there were some numbers behind the words. However, these were the most ancient words. There was a whole page, and Zi-chen could not recognize more than 5 words. It was as if he was reading a book from heaven. He could only ask, "Senior, what is written on it? I don't understand." "Humph!" The old man snorted and waved his big sleeve again. The words on the light screen were changed to words that Zi-chen could recognize. The first thing that Zi-chen saw was the fruit of strength. Fruit of strength. 1 contribution point for 1 fruit. Zi-chen was extremely surprised that there was a fruit of strength on the screen. After that, there was an introduction to the fruit of strength. It can increase one's physical strength and restore one's physical strength. It is very useful for physique cultivators and is an inheritance for physique cultivators. Zi-chen's gaze moved down and saw the second item. Low-grade elemental liquid. 1 contribution point for 100 drops. Middle-grade origin liquid. 1 contribution point for 10 drops. High-grade elemental liquid. 1 contribution point for 1 drop. And at the back was the introduction of the origin liquid. A small amount can recover origin power, while a large amount can break through bottlenecks and increase one's cultivation level. Core condensation pill. 1 contribution point for 1 pill. Effect description. Increases elemental energy control and condensation. Under the core condensation pill, Zi-chen actually saw the exchange list for primeval stones. Middle grade primordial stones. 1 contribution point, 100 stones. High grade primordial stones. 1 contribution point, 10 primordial stones. Supreme grade primordial stone. 1 contribution point. Effect. It can be used for cultivation or setting up formations. The higher the grade of the primordial stone, the stronger the formation. As Zi Chen's gaze moved down, he saw the entire exchange list. Zi Chen was immediately dumbfounded. There were too many resources, too many. So many that Zi Chen didn't even dare to think about it. Furthermore, there was no lack of true heavenly treasures. Other than resources, there were also pill weapons. There were all kinds of pill weapons, some for offense, some for defense. Looking at this list, Zi Chen felt as if he was in a trance. Could it be that all the resources of the entire martial heaven continent were gathered here? The majority of the resources here could be exchanged for at least one contribution point. And the things that could be exchanged for were too many, too good, and too useful. For example, top-grade pill weapons, 1 contribution point for 1. High-grade pill weapons, 1 contribution point for 10. Ordinary pill weapons, 1 contribution point for 100. This was an offensive alchemy weapon. It was the same for defensive alchemy weapons. There was also the Azure Spirit Pill. Looking at its introduction, Zi Chen found that its effect was the same as a treasure pill. In fact, its effect even surpassed that of a treasure pill. But its price was only 1 contribution point. Other than that, Zi Chen also saw the Yuan Recovery Pill. The Yuan Recovery Pill was the blood Yuan pill that Zi Chen had always been using. Ordinary Yuan Recovery Pills could be exchanged for 100 with 1 contribution point. High-grade Yuan Recovery Pills could be exchanged for 10, and top-grade Yuan Recovery Pills could only be exchanged for 1. Zi Chen guessed that these top-grade pills were refined from high-grade Yuan liquefied pills. A single one was enough to restore all the Yuan energy in Zi Chen's body. Seeing so many resources, Zi Chen was dazzled. He felt like he couldn't bear to look at them. As for the rest, he didn't even dare to look because there were just too many good things. However, looking at the exchange list, Zi Chen quickly found a problem. There was a problem with this exchange list. That meant there was a loophole. A drop of high-grade Yuan liquefied pills could be exchanged for 100 drops of middle-grade Yuan liquefied pills. But the same amount of contribution points could only be exchanged for 10 drops of middle-grade Yuan liquefied pills. If he really wanted to use 1 contribution point to exchange, then 1 drop of high-grade Yuan liquefied pills would naturally be better than 10 drops of middle-grade Yuan liquefied pills. Moreover, if he were to trade outside, he would make 10 times the profit. In addition to the loopholes, Zi Chen also found that the other items on the list also had loopholes. Moreover, the loopholes were even bigger. For example, a fruit of strength was also exchanged for 1 contribution point. But in Zi Chen's opinion, the true value of a fruit of strength was much higher than a drop of high-grade Yuan liquefied pills. Not to mention 1 drop. Even if it was 10 drops, there would still be people willing to exchange for it. Finding a loophole, Zi Chen was secretly delighted. But Zi Chen quickly came to his senses. So what if he found a loophole? Not to mention whether the items on the list were real or fake. Just the contribution points on the list were things that Zi Chen didn't have. The old man kept looking at Zi Chen, his face expressionless. But Zi Chen's expression was constantly changing. Finally, Zi Chen plucked up his courage. Regardless of whether the list was real or fake, he first needed to figure out what contribution points were and how to obtain them. He moved his gaze away from the exchange list with great difficulty and looked at the old man. He asked respectfully, "Senior, may I ask what contribution points are and how I can get them?" The old man didn't immediately answer, only looking at Zi Chen. Zi Chen's expression became increasingly anxious. There was less than 3 hours left to exchange for resources. Zi Chen was afraid that he wouldn't be able to obtain more contribution points in such a short time. Zi Chen became more and more anxious. The old man's expression finally changed. The previous coldness had disappeared, and a faint smile appeared on his face. He said, "Take out all the materials you obtained on the ancient road. Wait for me to appraise these materials and the estimated price will be in contribution points." The old man's attitude became more amiable. Zi-Chen also hurriedly expressed his thanks, joy appearing on his face. From the 1st day to the 5th day of the 9th day, Zi-Chen had obtained countless materials. Furthermore, he hadn't exchanged them all this time. It could be said that they were finally put to good use. Zi-Chen took out all the materials he had on him as quickly as possible. These materials piled up in front of him, forming small mountains of materials. On the way here, he hadn't been able to exchange for any materials. There were so many that Zi-Chen found them annoying. He hadn't even picked up the bad ones on the way here. But now these materials were finally put to good use. After taking out so many materials, Zi-Chen suddenly felt that he didn't have many materials. Not only did he not have many materials, but there were also too few materials. Furthermore, Zi-Chen was also somewhat regretting his foolish action of only snatching resources on the 8 ancient roads and not taking materials. As the materials were laid out, the old man's eyes swept over them. It could be seen that the old man's eyes were filled with disdain. He clearly didn't care for these materials. Zi-Chen's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't have any confidence. He carefully asked, "Senior, can these materials be exchanged for contribution points?" The old man nodded and said, "Although they are all trash, they can be exchanged." Zi-Chen felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. As long as they could be exchanged, it was fine. However, before he could even catch his breath, the old man pointed at a small pile of materials in front of him and said, "These are power crystals. There are too many impurities and they are too trash. I can barely exchange them for 1 contribution point." Zi-Chen's heart immediately sank when he heard this. Clearly, the old man's estimation of the material's value didn't have any standards at all. Everything was based on each person's preferences. At this moment, Zi-Chen was also guessing whether the loopholes on the list that he had so proudly found were also made based on the old man's preferences. Otherwise, why couldn't the old man see the loopholes that even a fool could see at a glance? This was the old man's territory, and the old man was the boss. Zi-Chen could only nod. That pile of power crystals seemed to be worth only 3 contribution points. Then the old man pointed at the materials next to him and said, "These things can barely be counted as 30 contribution points." When Zi-Chen heard this, his body staggered and he almost fell. Of course, it wasn't because he was too excited, but because he had encountered a shock that caused it. He had received 30 contribution points all of a sudden because the old man had directly pointed at a small mountain of materials. Such a mountain of materials could only be exchanged for 30 contribution points. Sure enough, the old man had lost his patience to appraise. He pointed at another mountain of materials and said, "Those are also trash, but they are considered the best of the worst. I'll give you 80. Zi-Chen's face was full of gratitude. He was afraid that the old man would say 30. This was because after the old man finished speaking, he didn't ask whether Zi-Chen agreed to the exchange. With a wave of his sleeve, he would directly take away the materials. This was almost a forced appraisal. Zi-Chen didn't dare to say a word, so he could only smile and hope that the old man would give him more. "These can barely be counted as 60. These are too trash. 20. Just as the old man's finger moved, Zi-Chen's resources rapidly decreased. Zi-Chen's heart was bleeding because, after comparing, the true value of many of the materials exceeded the old man's contribution points. How was this an estimation? This was clearly a random price. Moreover, it was a round number each time. Couldn't it be 61, 23, or something like that? This way there would be a lot more. After the old man gave the price, Zi-Chen hurriedly memorized it and then calculated in his heart. If he didn't calculate and the old man forgot to add up the contribution points later, it would be over. Moreover, this wise old man, Zi-Chen, gave Zi-Chen an extremely unreliable feeling. After all the materials were appraised and all were taken away, the old man looked at Zi-Chen and said, "Only these materials." When Zi-Chen heard this, he was about to cry. It seemed that he hadn't even appraised the last pile of materials that was taken away. P.S. This smile is a bit bitter. The interest of others can destroy all of one's efforts. Sure enough, the cruelest thing is reality. If you have the patience to wait, there will be an update tonight. Today, a friend told me that there will be a power outage tomorrow. Coincidentally, I have something to do, so I may not be able to update tomorrow. Actually, it was announced on TV, but I rarely watch TV. I only found out when I met and chatted with you today. Chapter 852. Zi-Chin didn't dare get angry with the old man for taking away the materials without appraising them. He could only carefully say, "Senior, I haven't appraised the materials you just received." The old man's expression immediately became unhappy. Zi-Chen hurriedly explained, "Senior, you can just take it as you see fit." 20. The old man didn't even think about it. Zi-Chen wanted to cry, but no tears came out. The old man might have already forgotten what materials he had just received. Zi-Chen estimated it to be 50, but the old man gave him 20. But he hurriedly remembered it and added it. Needless to say, everything added up to a very optimistic sum of contribution points. The old man looked at Zi-Chen and said, "Do you have any more materials? If not, you can start the exchange." Zi-Chen's expression changed. Then he clenched his teeth and said, "Senior, I still have some materials here." Then a light flashed in Zi-Chen's hand, and a large amount of things appeared. These things were extremely hard and looked like nuts. After they appeared, they jumped on the ground. There were already more than 10,000 of them. The old man looked at these hard things and said indifferently, "It's the heart of a tree." Zi-Chen nodded and waited for the old man to appraise them. But the old man waved his sleeve and directly took them away. Zi-Chen was dumbfounded. He took them away again without appraising them. "Senior, this." Zi-Chen looked at the old man anxiously. "Everything adds up to a total of 1,000 contribution points." The old man gave a round number. Zi-Chen wanted to cry when he heard that. He hurriedly explained, "Senior, don't. Just the materials alone add up to more than 1,000 contribution points." "Is that so? Then let's count it as 1,000. The old man gave another round number. "Senior, now it adds up to 1,090 contribution points. Could it be that those things are only worth 10 contribution points? Then 1,200. Hearing the old man casually give a number, Zi-Chan could see that the old man didn't care at all. The contribution points that he valued so much were just a number in the old man's eyes. All the materials had been exchanged for 1,200 contribution points. If they were all exchanged for strength-enhancing fruits, they would only be worth 1,200. Back then, the barbarian god had given Zi-Chin over 1,000 fruits of power for free. However, Zi-Chan had long since wasted those fruits of power. Looking at the list, Zi-Chan felt very conflicted because he didn't know what to exchange for. After looking at it for a long time, Zi-Chin still couldn't make a decision. Then he asked, "Senior, I've arrived at the 5th Nine Ancient Road. Isn't it said that the 5th Nine Ancient Road is the first gathering place of the ancient roads? Why is it like this?" "This is the first gathering place on the ancient road," the old man said. "Ah." Zi-Chan was dumbfounded once again. How can this be? Shouldn't there be a lot of trial takers? Zi-Chen's face was filled with anxiety, and his expression kept changing. He didn't know what had gone wrong. Seeing Zi-Chen's embarrassed look, the old man laughed loudly and said, "All right, I won't tease you any more." Then the old man praised, "You're very good to be able to come here. I'm here to give you compensation and rewards. As for the real 5th Nine Ancient Road, you haven't arrived yet." Zi-Chin heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. Then he asked, "Compensation and rewards? What are they?" The old man pointed at the list in front of him and said, "I'll compensate you with a chance to exchange for resources. As for the rewards, you'll be rewarded with 10 times the contribution points." What? Hearing the compensation, Zi-Chin didn't think much of it. However, when he heard the rewards, Zi-Chen instantly lost his composure and exclaimed loudly, "10 times the reward? Is it true? Senior, 10 times the reward? Is it really 10 times the reward? The old man was very satisfied with Zi Chen's excited look. The old man nodded and said, "Of course." "Haha, that's great. Senior, you're the best. Right now, I have 1,200 contribution points. That means that the tenfold reward is 12,000 contribution points. Adding that to my previous 1,200 contribution points, I now have 13,200 contribution points." Zi Chen shouted excitedly. He didn't see at all that the old man's smile suddenly froze. Contribution points can be calculated like this. It was supposed to be 10 times the reward, but Zi Chen actually calculated an extra 1,200. This kind of calculation was simply genius. The old man coughed dryly and said, "Zi Chen, 10 times the reward means 10 times the reward." Zi Chen was still in a state of excitement. When he heard this, he immediately nodded and said, "Yes, Senior. 10 times the reward means 10 times the reward. 12,000 plus my 1,200, that's 13,200. Haha, there's no mistake. It's only 10 times the reward. There's no extra reward." The old man repeated, his face dark. Zi Chen hurriedly nodded and explained, "Yes, that's right. I didn't ask for extra rewards. 10 times the reward plus my previous rewards. There's no mistake. Why do you have to add your contribution points? That's what I used to exchange for. What is it wrong?" Zi Chen asked, puzzled. The old man was about to collapse. Why couldn't he understand? Zi Chen also felt a little helpless. This old man's calculations were really bad. "You still haven't figured it out?" Zi Chen looked at the old man and said, "Then forget it. I don't want the other 1,200. 12,000 it is." "What do you mean, forget it?" The old man was angry when he heard this. "I'm still short of your contribution points. I'll give you the other 1,200 too." Zi Chen hurriedly thanked him. He thought that although the old man's brain wasn't very bright, he was a good person. Then Zi Chen seriously looked at the resources recorded on the list. At the top of the list were all things that could be exchanged for with 1 contribution point. Zi Chen actually saw thunder liquid essence at the bottom. As time went on, Zi Chen saw more and more resources, and the contribution points he needed to purchase them increased as well. At the bottom, Zi Chen saw skills. They were all relatively powerful Hotian skills. These Hotian skills required hundreds to hundreds of contribution points. Seeing these Hotian skills, Zi Chen was very surprised, but the contribution points required were too much, and they were useless to Zi Chen. Zi Chen disdained to exchange for them. Suddenly, Zi Chen's eyes widened as he looked at the list. His face was filled with disbelief. He actually saw Xiantian skills after Hotian skills. Real Xiantian skills. Zi Chen stared blankly at these Xiantian skills. That's right, it's these, not this. There were 10 types of Xiantian skills that could be exchanged. What kind of concept was 10 Xiantian skills? Zi Chen had never thought about it, nor did he dare to think about it. These Xiantian skills are real. Zi Chen stared blankly at these Xiantian skills recorded on the list. Of course, how can they be fake? The old man said proudly. Zi Chen couldn't help but click his tongue. He sighed at the old man's generosity. In this dead world, he found an old man exchanging resources, and the old man actually took out several Xiantian skills. This gave Zi Chen an extremely unreal feeling. It actually costs 5,000 contribution points. Seeing the contribution points required to exchange for Xiantian skills, Zi Chen also exclaimed, "Powerful Hotian skills only cost a few hundred contribution points, but this Xiantian skill actually cost 5,000 contribution points." Even if Zi Chen obtained 10 times the reward, he could only exchange for 2 Xiantian skills. Zi Chen's gaze moved down and suddenly fell on a Xiantian skill. Heaven-splitting spear art. Xiantian skill, a total of 8 moves. The introduction of this Xiantian skill was really simple, so simple that Zi-chan was relatively speechless. But looking at the contribution points required, it actually cost 6,000 contribution points. The others are all 5,000 contribution points. Why does this one cost 6,000? Could it be that it's better? Zi-chan pointed at the heaven-splitting spear art. Xiantian skills are also divided into strong and weak. This heaven-splitting spear art is an extremely strong Xiantian skill. If it was in the past, not to mention 6,000 contribution points, you might not even be able to exchange it for 60,000 contribution points. The old man snorted and said, "If I can't exchange it for 60,000 contribution points, then why exchange it for 6,000 now? Could it be that it's an incomplete skill?" Zi-chan asked. The 8 moves are not incomplete at all, they are complete. But according to the legends, the heaven-splitting spear art has the power to split the heavens, but it requires one to be proficient in the 8 moves, and then fuse the 8 moves together to have the power to split the heavens. In these years, there are many people who have practiced the 8 moves, but no one has been able to fuse them together. Because no one has been able to demonstrate the power to split the heavens, the 60,000 contribution points became 6,000. Zi-chan nodded, indicating that he understood. No matter how strong a skill was, if no one was able to learn it, it was useless. Just like the thunderbolt finger that was given to the Nimbus martial ancestor, and the 9 deaths of lightning that the Taishang elder had comprehended for many years. No matter how strong a skill was, it had to be suitable for the person who practiced it. Therefore, after nodding his head, Zi-chan pointed at the heaven-splitting spear art and said decisively, 6,000 contribution points. I'll exchange it for it. Zi-chan was so decisive, not because he was confident that he would be able to learn it, but because Zi-chan was most interested in the heaven-splitting spear art among all the Xiantian skills, and he also liked to use spears. Apart from that, Zi-chan already had Xiantian strength skills such as palm and fist techniques, so they were useless to him. "Good boy, you have courage." The old man praised, then said, "Hurry up and exchange the remaining contribution points. You don't have much time left." Zi-chan nodded his head, then looked at the list again. Except for the vitality stones, which were not attractive to him, all the other things were irresistibly tempting to Zi-chan. Although he still had 7,200 contribution points, Zi-chan needed too many things, so he always felt that the contribution points were too little. Zi-chan couldn't make up his mind for a long time, so he asked again, "Senior, is there any resources to exchange at the first gathering place of the ancient road?" "Yes." "Are there any medicinal pills?" "Yes, almost all the things on this list can be exchanged there, but the price is a bit higher." The old man was a bit impatient. Zi-chan was shocked when he heard this, but he also understood what resources he should choose. Zi-chan pointed at the fruit of strength and said, "Senior, give me 1,000 of this fruit of strength." Then he pointed at the thunder liquid essence and said, "Give me 1,000 drops of this thunder liquid essence. Give me 500 soul condensing pills. Give me 100 thawing spirit pills." Zi-chan pointed at the resources on the list and said that they were worth 7,200 contribution points. Among the things that Zi-chan exchanged, there was no essence liquid, no essence stones, no medicinal pills, not even a treasure pill. He exchanged all his contribution points for items that could increase his strength, elemental energy, or spiritual senses. Obviously, Zi-chan was planning to do business in the first gathering place of the ancient road. P.S. There seems to be a problem. I don't know what's going on. Chapter 853. After all the contribution points had been exchanged, the old man began to give Zi-chan the items he had exchanged for. Fruits of strength, thunder essence, soul condensing pills, soul melting pills, and other resources were all given to Zi-chan. These were all genuine items, without the slightest bit of dilution. They emitted various kinds of brilliant light, dazzling the eyes. Zi-chan's eyes shone as he hurriedly received them, repeatedly thanking the old man. The old man was very satisfied with Zi-chan, Otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed Zi-Chin to pester him endlessly and gave him an extra 1,000 contribution points. After receiving all the resources, Zi-Chin still looked at the old man with eager eyes. He didn't leave because there was still a big item that Zi-Chin hadn't received. Heaven Splitter Spear Art, a Xiantian level technique. Zi-Chin loved spears, so he was very excited to receive a Xiantian level spear art. The old man stretched out his hand, and a golden light appeared in his hand. This is the inheritance of the Heaven Splitter Spear Art. The comprehension of a Xiantian level technique is extraordinary. When you have enough time, you can comprehend it on your own. Without waiting for Zi-Chen's reply, the old man pointed at Zi-Chen's forehead. The inheritance light spot immediately merged with Zi-Chen's spiritual sense, and then quickly merged with his spiritual sense. The old man did this because he was worried that Zi-Chen would sell the Xiantian level technique in the outside world, so he forcibly merged it with Zi-Chen's soul. The light spot could only be used by one person, and Zi-Chen was slightly disappointed. In his original plan, he had wanted to give a limitless comprehension inheritance, but it seemed that Zi-Chen had thought too much. A mere 6,000 contribution points could be exchanged for a one-time use Xiantian level technique, so it was still a profit for Zi-Chen. After the transaction, Zi-Chen didn't leave. Instead, he looked at the old man and asked, "Senior, I saw that contribution points can be exchanged for resources. I wonder if the resources recorded on the list can be exchanged for some contribution points? What resources do you plan to exchange for contribution points?" The old man looked at Zi-Chen with a smile. Mid-grade origin liquid. Doesn't the list say that one contribution point can be exchanged for 10 drops? In that case, can I exchange 10 drops for one contribution point? Or 15 or even 20 drops? Zi-Chen asked. "You little brat, what a good plan. It's a pity that your time is up. Hurry up and scram." The old man laughed and scolded him. Then he kicked Zi-Chen's butt. Zi-Chen's body was sent flying like a cannonball, straight into the sky. The old man's voice rang out from below. "Brat, don't embarrass the ancient race." Zi-Chen soared into the sky and left this world. It was unknown if he had heard the old man's words. A large hole was torn open in the void, and Zi-Chen rushed in due to inertia. After entering the black hole, Zi-Chen's eyes were pitch black, as though he was teleporting through the void. Soon, Zi-Chen's eyes lit up again. Bang! When there was light in front of them, Zi-Chen landed on the ground, but he was lying on his stomach. Zi-Chen, who was lying on the ground, saw that there were runes under him. These were the runes of the teleportation array that he was very familiar with. "Hey, brat, get up. Hurry up and get down." After landing on the ground, before Zi-Chen could look around carefully, he heard the scolding of a human. Zi-Chen raised his head and saw that dozens of meters away, human cultivators were looking at him coldly. These people had cold expressions, and the corners of their mouths were curled into sinister sneers. None of them had good intentions. Zi-Chen raised his head and got up. When he saw these humans, a hint of excitement appeared on his face. He couldn't wait to go up and hug them. He saw people, and there were many of them. It seemed that the last time he saw so many people was more than 10 years ago on the 4-8 ancient roads. Seeing so many humans, Zi-Chen guessed that this should be the first gathering place on the 5-9 ancient roads. "Brat, are you stupid? Hurry up and get down. If you don't want to die, come down quickly and hand over everything you have." Seeing that Zi-Chen, who was on the teleportation platform, was indifferent, the people outside the teleportation platform were a little impatient. Moreover, he clearly saw that there were more than 10 of them, but he didn't show any fear on his face. This made them very unhappy. The dissatisfied people shouted angrily at Zi-Chen, but they didn't take the initiative to step forward, nor did they directly rush up to drag Zi-Chen down. Zi-Chen looked at the edge of the teleportation platform and found that there was a layer of energy light shield around them. They were all blocked by the energy light shield. Zi-Chen got up and tidied his robe. He looked at the people outside the light shield calmly and asked, Is this the first gathering place on the 5-9 ancient roads? Idiot, you don't even know where you are. He must have encountered danger on the ancient roads, and was so scared that he forgot where he was. The ancient roads are full of danger. It is simply heaven-defying luck for someone like him to be able to survive. The group of trial challengers shouted angrily again, their greedy eyes staring at the spirit ring in Zi-Chen's hand. Their expressions told Zi-Chen that this was indeed the 5-9 ancient roads. Since these people dared to rob outside the teleportation platform, Zi-Chen guessed that this was an unruly ancient road. A trial challenger who seemed to be the leader coldly stared at Zi-Chen and said, 2 hours? You can only stay here for 2 hours at most. During these 2 hours, we can't do anything to you. But once these 2 hours are over, you will be forcibly expelled from the teleportation platform. At that time, you will die. Zi-Chen's expression didn't change. He wasn't threatened. The leader paused and said, but as long as you come out now and obediently hand over your resources, we can spare your life. Moreover, we will allow you to join our Green Peak. By the way, let me tell you that the leader of Green Peak is a powerful existence comparable to a peak Hotian warrior. Zi-Chen laughed when he heard this. You want me to join you after robbing my resources? Colluding with you to rob others? What a good plan. The leader coldly snorted and said, Boy, what do you know? This is the 5-9 ancient roads. There are many trial challengers here, and the powerhouses are as numerous as the clouds. If you want to survive here, you have to unite. Unite to rob others' things and resources. Zi-Chen's face had a trace of sarcasm. What an arrogant boy who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You will never understand our world if you stand here. But as long as you come out and experience it for yourself, you will understand. Here, if you don't have resources, you will die. If you have resources, you will live. Is that so? Then I would like to see it. As soon as the leader finished speaking, Zi-Chen sneered and strode out. Zi-Chen walked out of the teleportation platform. Sure enough, he found that this place was very different from the one he had sensed in the teleportation platform. In the teleportation platform, Zi-Chen had sensed that the heaven and earth spirit chi was extremely rich and gentle. It was like a cultivation treasure land. But as soon as Zi-Chen walked out of the transmission platform, he once again sensed that the world's spiritual energy was berserk. This berserk world's spiritual energy was almost impossible to absorb. Zi-Chen tried to absorb it, but he found it extremely difficult. He had a powerful physique and an extraordinary cultivation method. But even absorbing this berserk energy was so difficult, let alone others. Although there was spiritual energy here, it couldn't be absorbed. It was no different from having no spiritual energy at all. And since so many trial challengers had gathered here, there would naturally be conflicts. And with conflicts, there would be battles. And with battles, there would be consumption. And if one wanted to replenish their consumption, they could only do so with resources. Therefore, the core of the 5-9 worlds was resources. They had to find a way to obtain all resources. Seeing the crowd and feeling the berserk world's spiritual energy, Zi-Chen understood many things. In this place, resources were everything. In Zi-Chen's words, resources were his life. Just as Zi-Chen walked out and tried to refine the berserk energy, more than a dozen trial challengers had already surrounded Zi-Chen. The leader shouted at Zi-Chen, Kid, do you understand now? Zi-Chen nodded and said, Zi-Chen is my life. Haha, the leader laughed. It seems that your awareness is very high. Very good, very good. Since you are so tactful, I will be benevolent and give you another chance. Hand over your resources and join us or die. Zi-Chen's gaze swept across the dozen trial challengers and finally landed on the leader. He said seriously, resources are my life, but I have never said that I would take other people's lives. If I don't take other people's lives, no one can take my life. Since you have just arrived here and it is not appropriate to kill, I will spare you the death penalty today. If you voluntarily hand over your resources, You will also be spared from physical pain." What? The leader was stunned when he heard this, but soon there was a burst of laughter from all around. "You want us to hand over our resources? Kid, are you stupid? You are just one person, and there are more than a dozen of us. 1 against a dozen. Do you think you have a chance of winning? Who do you think you are?" Faced with the crowd's disdainful taunts, Zichen only sneered. After that, he turned into a bolt of lightning and charged toward the surrounding trial challengers. Attack, kill. Seeing Zichen take the initiative to attack, the leader of the trial challengers reacted quickly and shouted in time. However, before the others could attack, there were 2 tremors from the side. 2 trial challengers were sent flying by Zichen's 2 punches. The trial challenger who was sent flying by the powerful punch fainted on the way back. After knocking down 2 trial challengers, the others' attacks fell. However, the hasty attacks were lacking in both strength and speed. Zichen easily dodged these powerful attacks. Then he dodged and threw punches. The tremors continued to ring. More than a dozen trial challengers who were not weak were sent flying by a single punch. In the process, they were directly knocked unconscious. Several attacks did not hit the opponent. Seeing that his subordinates were knocked out one by one, the leader's expression became horrified. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen tremors were heard. Except for the leader, the rest of the trial challengers were all knocked unconscious. The leader only saw a flash of light in front of his eyes. Before he could react, his whole body bent like a shrimp. His lower abdomen was hit by a strong force, and he vomited bitter water. As for why there was no food, it was because he had not eaten for a long time. In the 5-9 ancient roads, food was as precious as resources. Bang! Bang! In the face of Zichen's attack, the leader could not make an effective counterattack at all. He was knocked down with 2 or 3 punches. After falling down, the leader did not faint. Zichen walked up to him, patted his cheek with his hand, and said, "Is it useful to have more people?" Chapter 854. Crimson blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth and dripped onto his robe. The leader stared at Zichen in shock. His mouth moved, but he could not say a word. He knocked out one person with 1 punch and knocked out everyone with a dozen punches. He did not even see what kind of energy his opponent used. The leader was completely shocked by Zichen's combat power. He was so shocked that he did not answer Zichen's question immediately. Zichen gently patted the other party's cheeks, shook his head, and said with a smile, "I just said that if you hand over the spirit ring, you can avoid physical pain, but you didn't listen. You treated my good intentions as bad intentions. Now, you've been beaten up, your spirit ring is gone, and your resources are gone." It was unknown whether the leader was beaten out of his combat power or scared out of his wits. He allowed Zichen to take away his spiritual ring without any resistance. Holding the spiritual ring, Zichen forcibly broke the restriction on the spiritual ring in front of him and took out all the resources and materials inside. Zichen's powerful spiritual thoughts shocked the leader again. The resources and materials were gone just like that. The leader was dejected, but he didn't despair. As long as he was alive, there was hope. Green Peak was very large, and there were many trial takers, as well as quite a few experts. Most importantly, the leader of Green Peak was an expert who had come from a first-tier ancient path. His battle prowess was revered by all the members of Green Peak. Therefore, as long as he stayed in Green Peak, the stolen resources would be returned to him in the future. Zichen took the resources and threw the empty spiritual ring to him. After taking the spiritual ring, the leader felt that this powerful challenger was a weirdo. In the ancient road of the trials, where it was either you die or I die, if other powerful warriors encountered such a situation, they would definitely slaughter everyone. But this person was different. He only took the resources and did not kill anyone. In the end, he even kindly returned the spiritual ring. The leader could not help but wonder if this person wanted to rob them after they had stolen some resources. Very soon, all the resources on the unconscious people were taken away. Their empty spirit rings were thrown to the side. Other than the spirit rings, Zichen did not take their pill weapons. After putting away all the resources, Zichen turned his head and looked at the leader. He said, "Seriously, remember to do less immoral things like taking lives for resources. That way, you can live longer." The leader was speechless. In fact, he didn't know how to answer Zichen. He had been hoping that Zichen would leave quickly because he was too strong. He was afraid that Zichen would go back on his words and kill him. The leader was too frightened to speak, so Zichen had no interest in talking anymore and could only leave. As soon as Zichen left, the leader went forward to wake up the other cultivators. After waking them up, the group of more than 10 people hurriedly fled. During the escape, they did not even dare to complain. Less than 15 minutes after they had fled, Zichen suddenly returned. Seeing the empty surroundings, Zichen couldn't help but curl his lips. He originally wanted to ask where this place was, what forces were nearby, whether there were any cities, and where the nearest city was. Unfortunately, the other party had run too quickly, and Zichen had nowhere to ask. Helpless, Zichen could only continue forward. The surrounding heaven and earth spiritual qi was still violent, and Zichen tried to absorb it. After a while there was some effect, but the efficiency was too low. It was as low as if Zichen was using spirit stone slags to recover his origin energy. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. Zichen still hadn't found any cities, markets, or markets. However, he had encountered 2 groups of trial takers. After displaying his strength, Zichen defeated the 2 groups of bandits by himself. At the same time, he asked all the questions he had before. In the end, Zichen learned that he was in the outer region of this world. It was 1,000,000 miles away from the only city in this world, Heaven's Pride City. Heaven's Pride City was the core of this world. Being in Heaven's Pride City meant that one was in the inner region. If one was outside Heaven's Pride City, it meant that one was in the outer region. Even if one was at the city gate, it was still called the outer region. Near Zichen, there were more than 10 bandit forces, big and small. These people all made a living by robbing resources. There are so many of you. Why don't you go to Heaven's Pride City instead of staying here? Zichen asked again. However, the bandits' answer was beyond Zichen's expectations. To enter Heaven's Pride City, one needed an entry token. Everyone in Heaven's Pride City had an identity token in their hands. This identity token could not be transferred or sold. If one died, the token would automatically disappear. Without the token, one was not qualified to enter Heaven's Pride City. After knowing about Heaven's Pride City and the token, Zichen also knew that there was a trading market in this area. This was a market established by the alliance of the 3 major forces in this area. There were resources to be exchanged there. As for integrity, no one dared to compliment it. The bandit, who was scared of being beaten, told the truth. During the day, they were honest businessmen. However, at night they became vicious wolves. Then, in order to survive, the bandit revealed many dark secrets. Zichen blushed with shame as he listened. This was a world of darkness. Zichen did not have many resources left. He really needed to buy some. After inquiring about the location of the trading market, Zichen headed there. Although there were bandits along the way, they were all very pitiful. Even Zichen felt sad when he saw the resources on them. Moreover, in the process of asking, Zichen learned that there were many trial takers who had been here for hundreds of years. Every day, it was either one of them robbing or the other robbing. Therefore, between robbing and being robbed, they would never have enough resources to leave. 3 days later, Zichen arrived at the market that the other party had mentioned. This was a market less than 2 miles in size. The scale was a bit terrible. There were very few trial takers coming and going. As for the merchants exchanging resources, there were only a few. Around the market square, there was a simple fence made of black bamboo. This low fence had holes everywhere, other than symbolizing the boundary. There was nothing else that could be prevented. Along the way, Zichin had seen countless trading markets, big and small. However, the one in front of him seemed to be the most dilapidated. It was also the one with the least popularity and the most bandits. Zichin walked directly to the market, attracting a lot of attention. A late-stage primal core trial taker stopped Zichin. Without the slightest courtesy of a service worker, he coldly asked, "Are you buying or selling?" "What's the difference between buying and selling?" Zichin asked. "If you buy, you have to pay an entrance fee of 10 drops of low-grade essence liquid. If you sell, you have to pay 100 drops of low-grade essence liquid or 1 mid-grade essence liquid." The trial taker coldly explained. Entrance fee? Zichin wanted to laugh when he heard this. This place was surrounded by a broken fence and looked like a pigsty. Yet there was an entrance fee, and an extremely high one at that. Now, Zichin finally understood why the popularity of this place was so low. Then what about buying and selling? Zichin asked again. The trial taker frowned, as if he didn't like Zichin at all. He coldly said, "It's still 100 drops of low-grade essence liquid or 1 mid-grade essence liquid." Zichin chuckled. "Sell one, get one free. Not bad, not bad." Just as the trial taker's face clearly showed his displeasure, a mid-grade essence liquid appeared in Zichin's hand. "I'm buying and selling." Saying this, Zichin threw the essence liquid to the trial taker and walked straight into the trading market. Idiot, that's called exchanging. Catching the essence liquid, the trial taker's cold eyes flashed with disdain. Zichin walked into the market. When the people here saw Zichin, they only looked a little surprised, but didn't show any other expression. The sellers didn't shout or introduce their products, and the buyers didn't ask what Zichin was going to sell. The entire market was extremely quiet, and there was almost no sound of bargaining. Zichin didn't say much. He simply found an open area and copied the others, taking out a long piece of cloth and writing an introduction to the goods and what he wanted to exchange for. Originally, Zichin had planned to put in a few more things, but seeing that the others were only putting in 1 or 2 things, Zichin also put in 2 things. The first thing he put down was the soul-solidifying pill. Next to it was written the effects of the soul-solidifying pill and the amount of resources needed to exchange for it. The soul-solidifying pill could increase one's control over yuan power. It was of a much higher grade than the tree heart. Zichin wrote on the side that 1 pill needed 100 drops of high-grade essence liquid. The second item was the spirit-melting pill. Its effect was to increase one's spiritual energy. It was also an extremely special pill of high quality. Next to the spirit-melting pill, Zichin wrote the price. 1 pill needed 120 drops of high-grade essence liquid. After stating the price, Zichin put out the long cloth. Soon, trial takers came to Zichin's side. But when they saw what Zichin was selling and the amount of resources needed, their expressions changed. Zichin copied the other merchants, remaining calm and unperturbed. If no one asked, he naturally wouldn't explain. Thus, a silent transaction began. In front of Zichin, trial takers came and went. After everyone saw the items that Zichin had purchased, they looked at Zichin with a strange look in their eyes. However, no one asked Zichin if the things written on the items were real or fake. After taking a look, they all left. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. During these 3 days, more than 300 trial takers came to Zichin's stall. But no one asked, nor did they haggle with him. Zichin didn't make a single transaction in these 3 days. Fortunately, as long as one came in and didn't leave, the entrance fee would always be valid. Zichin didn't pay an unfair entrance fee. 3 days, 6 days passed. More and more people came to see, but no one asked and no one bought. Just as Zichin was about to pack up and leave, the stall owner in the distance packed up his things. He sold materials in exchange for essence liquid. Although there wasn't much turnover in the past 6 days, it was much better than Zichin's blank slate. Zichin thought the stall owner was going to pack up and leave. Who would have thought that, after packing up, he would actually walk towards Zichen? The stall owner came to Zichen's side and opened up his stall. Zichen looked at him calmly. After setting up his stall, the stall owner looked at Zichen and said, "Little brother, it's very difficult to sell things like this." "Not necessarily." Zichen glanced at him, then pointed to the front and said, "Look, isn't business here?" Chapter 855. While they were talking, 3 people entered the market. After entering the market, they went straight for Zichen. The 3 people all had unfriendly expressions. One of them was a big man with a fierce face. Following Zichen's gaze, the stall owner naturally saw the 3 people. His expression changed slightly, and without saying anything, he moved the stall 3 meters away, putting some distance between them. However, before the 3 people could approach, they were stopped by a trial taker guarding the market. The reason was that the 3 people didn't pay the entrance fee. "We're just looking for someone. Why do we need an entrance fee?" The big man shouted loudly, afraid that others couldn't hear him. Not paying the entrance fee, and still being so arrogant, the trial taker's expression became disdainful. He said coldly, "You dare to be so unreasonable here? Do you know where you are?" The big man seemed to be very arrogant and didn't buy the other party's words. The 2 sides started arguing. Seeing this, Zichen couldn't help but shake his head. The other party wasn't even willing to pay the entrance fee of 10 drops of low-grade essence liquid. It was obviously impossible for them to take out more than 100 drops of high-grade essence liquid. The 3 of them are from Bright Creek Gorge. The scale of this force is only slightly weaker than the 3 forces. Looking at the 2 sides arguing, the stall owner spoke again. Zichen nodded but didn't say anything. "I've seen your stuff. It's good stuff, and the price is absolutely fair. However, if you leave it here, it's destined that no one will buy it." The stall owner whispered, "This place is lacking in resources. The forces often attack and rob each other, consuming a lot of resources. They don't even have enough resources themselves, so who would buy this thing at a high price?" Zichen looked at the stall owner and asked, "Then where should I sell it?" "Go to Heaven's Pride City. As its name suggests, that's where the geniuses of the generation gather. Anyone who lives there is either a true powerhouse or has a lot of resources. If you put something there, you can sell it in a day." Speaking up to here, the stall owner paused and said, "You don't have a Heaven's Pride City token here, right?" "I don't either, but I know a genius who has one. If you trust me, I can help you contact him." A smile appeared on Zichen's face as he retorted, "We've only spoken 3 sentences. Do you think I should believe you?" Zichen's straightforwardness stunned the stall owner. Then he said, "We've only known each other for a short time, but I, Yen Lao-san, have a reputation. I'm the most trustworthy. However, I'm not helping you out of goodwill. I'll have to collect my reward after this." Zichen said, "Let me think about it." While the 2 of them were talking, the quarrel between the large man and the trial taker escalated once more. The large man sent the trial taker flying with a single punch. Daring to start a fight here, a strange light flashed in the eyes of the surrounding people. The trial challenger, who had previously been indifferent and disdainful, now had an angry expression. He stood up and pointed at the big fellow, shouting, "You dare to start a fight here? You're dead. Just you wait." After he finished speaking, he left in a flash. He left completely. The stall owner and Zichen saw this at the same time. The stall owner was stunned for a moment, and then his expression changed. He quietly moved a few meters to the side again. Zichen, on the other hand, sneered. The 3 of them, led by the large man, walked straight towards Zichen. When they got closer, they saw the item Zichen had placed in front of his stall. The large man pointed at Zichen and asked, "Is this thing really as miraculous as you write it out to be?" Zichen glanced at the fierce-looking large man and said indifferently, "Of course. 100 drops of high-grade, liquefied origin essence? Have you seen 100 drops of high-grade, liquefied origin essence before? The large man paced back and forth in front of Zi Chen's stall, his eyes scanning Zi Chen's body and the stall. I haven't. I just found some resources and wanted to sell them so I could take a look. Zi Chen glanced at the large man and said, Are you buying? If not, please go away. Don't block other people's way. The large man didn't answer immediately. During this time, his spiritual senses had been scanning Zi Chen's body, but he couldn't discover any details about Zi Chen at all. After a while, the large man said, Of course I'll buy it, but I'm afraid it's fake, so I have to take a look first. Zi Chen looked at the large man with an inexplicable look in his eyes and asked, Are you sure? Of course. Zi Chen nodded. All right, I'll show it to you. With that, Zi Chen took out a condensed origin essence pill, which emitted a green light. Zi Chen guessed that its main ingredient was the heart of a tree. This is a condensed origin essence pill, with 100 drops of high-grade, liquefied origin essence. Receiving the condensed origin essence pill, a strange light flashed in the large man's eyes, and he said, There's also a spirit-melting pill. Zi Chen looked at the large man and said, It's not good to be greedy. Greedy for what? I'll just give you the liquefied origin essence, the large man said angrily. Zi Chen retracted his gaze and took out the spirit-melting pill again. It was golden in color and emitted a dazzling light. The gazes of the people in the distance fell on the two types of pills, and their eyes were filled with amazement. After carefully examining the two pills, the burly man fiddled with the two pills and said, Could it be that there are only two of them? There's nothing else. Zi Chen said calmly, This is just for you to take a look. As long as you can take out enough liquefied origin essence, I can provide you with enough pills. No one present knew that when Zi Chen was calm, he was angry. What a big tone. Why don't you take them out and let us see? The large man said loudly, but unfortunately the people around felt that the atmosphere was not right and did not join in the commotion. You've already taken 2. Now it's time to give me the liquefied origin essence, Zi Chen said. The large man's hand flashed and the 2 pills disappeared. He asked, I took 2. 2 what? You're trying to cheat. Zi Chen looked calmly at the large man. Haha, what cheat? What did I take from you? Who can tell me what I took from him? The large man turned his head and looked around at the crowd. No one said anything. Obviously, they did not want to participate in this dispute. You're really not going to give it to me? Zi Chen asked again. Give what? Tell me what I'm going to give you. Tell me what I took from you. Kid, tell me. The large man's eyes became more and more ferocious. Finally, he reached out and was about to slap Zi Chen's face. Before the large man's hand could reach Zi Chen, a fist landed on the large man's face. Bang! Crack! An abrupt sound rang out in the makeshift market. Just like how the burly man had knocked back the trial taker with a single punch, Zi Chen had knocked back the burly man with a single punch and broken his nose. The large man's nose was flattened and blood spurted out from his nostrils and mouth. After taking a few steps back, he covered his nose and shouted, Kill him! Beside the large man, the 2 men's eyes were filled with murderous intent as they attacked Zi Chen. Die! A cold voice came out from the 2 men's mouths. The crowd watched the battle quietly. In their opinion, Zi Chen, the stall owner, should have some tricks up his sleeve since he dared to attack. However, since he dared to snatch something so blatantly, he must have made ample preparations. The crowd guessed that the following battle would be a fierce battle. However, after exchanging blows, the crowd realized that there was a huge difference between their predictions and reality. 2 punches. Zi Chen's stall owner ended the battle with just 2 punches. Following the 2 loud bangs, the 2 men were instantly sent flying. After they landed on the ground, they did not get up again. They're dead. He killed one of them with 1 punch. The crowd was shocked. The large man who was covering his face was also shocked by Zi Chen's combat power. He did not even cover his face tightly, causing more blood to spurt out. After he attacked, Zichen did not waste any time. He took 3 steps forward to the large man and kicked him. The large man's body flew backward and his body bent like a shrimp. Zichen went forward again and punched his opponent's face. The large man continued to spurt out blood. His white teeth came out along with the blood. The large man was hit in the chin and was sent flying with a punch. Before his body landed on the ground, Zichen leaped up high and kicked his opponent's lower abdomen, smashing him to the ground. Both of them were cultivators, but the way they fought was like a fight between mortal martial artists. There was no elemental force surging around their bodies. It was understandable that Zichen's stall owner did not have elemental force surging around his body. However, the large man who was hit did not have elemental force surging around his body as well. This was thought-provoking. After 3 consecutive strikes, the burly man was knocked down. He was already breathing more than he was inhaling. His eyes were filled with shock and fear. Zichen did not continue to attack. Instead, he looked at the large man calmly and said, "When I first came to your place, I only wanted to be honest and make a deal. However, you have crossed the line. I have never killed anyone since I came here, but you crossed the line and made me break my vow. Me. The large man pointed at Zichen with a trembling finger, but he could not say a complete sentence. "Are you going to tell me who your backer is? There's no need for that. I'm just a businessman. I don't care about these things. You just have to tell me if you took my things," Zichen said. Yes, the large man quickly said. "It's good that you admit it, but you should know that it's wrong to take someone's things. It's even more wrong to rob someone's things. It's even more wrong to kill someone after robbing someone's things." I know. The large man's voice was trembling. "It's good that you know. That's why I said, don't do such things in your next life," Zichen said calmly. He stepped forward calmly, lifted his leg calmly, and kicked out calmly. The large man died calmly. Zichen calmly took the 3 spirit rings from them and then calmly returned to his stall and sat down in front of it. Zichen was calm, but the people around him were not. Their faces were filled with horror. They were completely shocked. Similarly, a group of people who came later were also not calm. Beside this group of people was the challenger who had been beaten up earlier. There were more than 10 people in this group. The black-robed man should be the leader. When he came in and saw the 3 corpses on the ground, he said coldly, "How dare you kill people in the market? Who is it?" The black-robed man looked around. Everyone's eyes subconsciously fell on Zichen. The black-robed man looked at Zichen and said coldly, "It's you. You killed these 3 people." Chapter 856. The black-robed man looked at Zichen with an unfriendly gaze. He coldly said, "You killed people in the city square and even dared to speak nonsense and slander us. This is the city square. What do you think this is? A bandit's nest?" Zichen saw that the other party refused to admit it and didn't want to argue. He directly asked, "We've already killed them, and their corpses are right there. What do you want?" "Humph! Breaking the rules of the city square. No matter who it is, they must pay the price." The black-robed man coldly snorted. Zichen looked at the black-robed man and sarcastically said, "Price? What price? Do you want my life or my resources? But, in my opinion, these 2 things are equal. Resources are lives. Lives are resources," Zichen calmly said. "Although I don't like to kill, I have a bottom line. Because I fear death, I fear my life. So, when my life is threatened, that is my bottom line. Anyone who crosses my bottom line and tries to take my life, I will take their life first." Zichen's words were clearly a threat. Before they could threaten him, they were threatened first. The black-robed man's expression immediately became ugly. Although he had more than a dozen people around him, to be able to live here for so long and sit in this position, he naturally knew that when facing a true powerhouse, numbers didn't mean everything. In their territory, seeing that they had so many people and still dared to take the initiative to threaten them, the black-robed man believed that the other party was confident. The several leaders were all out on business. Although there were powerhouses in their force, they probably weren't a match for the other party. In the face of such a threat, the black-robed man actually lost his confidence. The black-robed man's expression fluctuated. He couldn't make up his mind. Previously, he had planned to use his advantage in numbers to attack, but now that he was threatened, he began to feel fear. This plan clearly wouldn't work. He pondered for a moment and then swept his eyes over the trial taker. He coldly asked, "What is going on here?" The trial taker was also an extremely intelligent fellow. He quickly understood the meaning of the leader's words. He pointed at the corpses on the ground and said, "Sir, the 3 of them entered the city square and were unwilling to pay the entrance fee. They even attacked us." What? There was such a thing? The black-robed man's eyes widened, killing intent surging around him. "Yes, my lord." Zi Chen calmly watched the 2 of them put on an act. His expression didn't change at all. The people around him also understood. Since he was able to make the forces in the market place fear him, they all looked at Zi Chen with reverence. "Damn things! How dare you break the rules of my city square? Even if you die, I won't let you go. Men, chop these 3 up and feed them to the demon wolves." The black-robed man was furious. His face was full of anger. A few people walked up from behind and quickly left with the 3 corpses. The black-robed man watched as the 3 people left the city square. Then he turned around. His gloomy complexion gradually eased. He cupped his fists together towards Zi Chen and said, "Thank you, my friend, for your help in protecting the reputation of my city square." Zi Chen waved his hand and said, "You're welcome." After he finished speaking, Zi Chen sat down, ignoring the man. It was obvious that he intended to send him off. However, the black-robed man didn't leave. Instead, he took a few steps forward and looked at the items Zi Chen was selling. "I didn't expect you to be selling the condensing spirit pill and the raging spirit pill. These are good things. They can be considered luxury goods." Seeing the item, the black-robed man's face lit up. However, he changed the topic and said, "Although these things are good, it's a pity that they can't be sold here." "Oh." Zi Chen looked up at him and asked, "Since they're good things and the price is fair, why can't they be sold?" The black-robed man smiled and said, "My friend, you don't know. In this area, resources are scarce and there are many forces. There are also frequent wars. People don't even have the resources to recover. How can they have extra resources to buy these useless luxury goods?" "You're saying that these are useless luxury goods?" Zi Chen was surprised. If they can't even recover, who cares about the increase of battle power? The black-robed man pointed at the 2 pills and said, "If you want to sell these things, there is only one place, and that is Tianjiao City. I happen to have a friend in Tianjiao City. If you don't mind, I can contact him and sell these 2 pills on your behalf. As for the price, we can discuss." Zi Chen looked at him and said, "What if I do mind?" The 3 of them took the 3 people Zi Chen killed and left the market. The 3 dead people were clearly on the same side. Naturally, they wouldn't really chop them up and feed them to the demon wolves. They just took them out and found a place to bury them. They were worried that the other party's spiritual senses would investigate, so the 3 of them needed to bury the stone heads in a canyon dozens of miles away. It was only dozens of miles, so they could cover it quickly with their top speed. However, halfway through, the 3 of them found a group of people coming from the opposite side. "It's the leader. The leader is back." Seeing a familiar figure among the group of people, the 3 of them were obviously happy. They put down the corpse and quickly flew forward. There were more than 20 people in this group. Other than their leader, they only recognized 3 of the others. They were the leaders of the 2 allies and the leader of the Bright Creek Gorge. At this moment, the leaders of the 4 forces weren't at the front. Instead, they were at the back with another person. In front of the 5, there were 2 people in the middle. Looking at their leaders, it seemed that the 2 of them were very noble. 7 people were at the front, while the rest were at the back. In the middle of the group, there was a young man who was full of scars and had been tortured beyond recognition. "Greetings, leader." The three of them came forward and bowed. "Why are you here?" The leader of the three saw the three of them and was surprised. "Leader, we are here to deal with the bodies. Someone killed people in the market." The three of them explained as quickly as they could. "Oh, you killed people and you need to deal with the bodies?" The leader's eyes flashed and said, "That person is very strong. His strength is unknown, but Leader Mu is very afraid of him." As a leader, Shi Sheng, who knew his subordinate's conduct, quickly guessed everything. He didn't ask much, turned to look at the two leaders and said, "I'm really sorry, there's a small matter in the market. I have to deal with it." "Do you need us to go?" one of the two asked. No, it's just a small matter. We'll just go and take a look. You must be tired from the journey. You two should rest at my place." Shi Sheng smiled. Shi Sheng pointed at the two and said, "You two take the leader to the station to rest. Everyone will leave first. We'll have to trouble you for the rest." The two turned to the 5 people and cupped their fists. "Don't worry, we'll take care of this matter. We'll find out where the things are," the 4 of them said. Seeing the 4 of them leave, Shi Sheng looked at the last person and said coldly, "Go and tell Mu when to do it. I'll be there soon." The last person nodded and left. As for the 3 corpses in the distance, no one cared about them anymore. "Brother Chin, we have to go to the market to deal with some matters. I wonder if you—" Shi Sheng looked at the leader of the new force, Green Peak. "Then let's go together. I want to see who is so bold as to attack people in the market." The leader of Green Peak, Chin Meng, laughed. So, the group of people went to the market. On the way, Chin Meng looked back at the young man covered in scars and sneered, "Wu Yu, you never thought this day would come." The young man named Wu Yu looked at Chin Meng coldly and didn't say anything. "You schemed against me on the ancient road, so I threatened to kill you. I didn't expect you to hide for dozens of years. Now, hand over the things, and I'll let you die a quick death. If you beg for mercy, I don't mind sparing your life." Chin Meng said. Wu Yu still didn't say anything. The black-robed man, Mu Wen, was casually chatting with Zichen. However, Zichen's cold attitude caused Mu Wen's heart to burn with rage. Soon, the people who dealt with the corpses came back, but only one of them came back. "Why did you take so long?" Mu Wen asked coldly. The man came forward and whispered a few words in Mu Wen's ear. Mu Wen frowned at first, but soon relaxed. After the other party finished speaking, Mu Wen directly shouted, "Come on, take down this arrogant guy for me." Following Mu Wen's shout, the dozen people around him moved, charging at Zichen. A cold light flashed in Zichen's eyes, and he punched out. Zichen had heard the man's words clearly. It was because the other side's leader had returned that they had the confidence to act so arrogantly. However, before the other side's leader arrived, Zichen had already knocked down all the people around him. As for the leader, Mu Wen, he was trampled under Zichen's foot. Mu Wen had suffered several punches from Zichen, and now he shouted in pain, "Brat, just you wait. Our leader will be here soon, and it will be your time of death." Mu Wen's shouts made Zichen extremely unhappy, and he knocked him out with a kick, then took away his spiritual ring. The others were shocked, and they also cried out in alarm. But soon, Zichen knocked them out one by one and took away their spiritual rings. From the beginning of the battle to the end, Zichen had only used 10 breaths of time. In the distance, the merchants and buyers were all dumbfounded. Zichen's powerful fighting strength was shocking their young hearts. As for the merchants who had tried to approach Zichen, they were constantly moved sideways by Zichen's attacks. By now, they had moved more than 100 meters away. The entire market became quiet at this moment, and no one spoke. As for the people who had been shouting, they were all knocked out by Zichen. Shi Sheng, who was walking toward the market, did not hear any fighting for a long time, and this made him feel uneasy. However, when he used his spiritual sense to check, he found that all of his people had fainted on the ground. Damn it! He cursed, and his body turned into a stream of light, rushing toward the market. Then the other leaders followed. Soon, a group of more than 20 people entered the market and then rushed toward Zichen. Chapter 857. Chen Meng. Hearing the exclamation, Zichen saw Chen Meng rushing over from afar. Back in the barbarian world, Chen Meng had escaped from Zichen before the dragons had hatched. Who would have thought that Chen Meng would also be able to reach the 5-9 ancient road after so many years? Zichen's gaze swept through the crowd. Apart from Chen Meng, he also saw Wu Yu. Wu Yu was covered in wounds, and his yuan qi was sealed. Clearly, he had suffered inhumane treatment. When Zichen looked at Wu Yu, the latter also looked at Zichen because of Chen Meng's cry. The two looked at each other. Wu Yu's expression was cold and indifferent. This kind of coldness had nothing to do with killing intent. Instead, he looked more like a walking corpse. Zichen retracted his gaze and looked at Chen Meng. "You're ruthless." The moment Chen Meng saw Zichen, his eyes never left Zichen. He thought of all the things that had happened that day, and his face was twisted with anger. "Leader, it's him. It's him. He stole our resources." Behind Chen Meng, a man pointed at Zichen and shouted. Hearing this, Zichen's eyes flashed with ridicule. "So you're the leader of Green Peak. It seems like we're really fated. Brother Chen, is he your friend?" Seeing that the two knew each other, Shisheng asked. Chen Meng, who was already burning with rage, immediately exploded when he heard this. He shouted furiously, "Bullshit friend! I, Chen Meng, do not have such a friend. He is my enemy, my mortal enemy. When we meet today, either he dies or I die." Zichen also said, "That's right. We're not friends. If we meet today, you'll die." Shisheng was relieved. It was good that they weren't friends. He had already seen what Zichen had written on the strip of cloth. He also knew the reason for the conflict between Mu Wen and Chen Meng. Whether it was the soul melting pill or the soul condensing pill, they were both luxurious items. In Heaven's Pride City, they were definitely worth more than 100 drops of high-grade yuan liquid. Even he would not be willing to swallow these two items. He would only exchange them for resources. Therefore, he was determined to snatch these items. Shisheng glared at Zichen, his eyes turning cold. He shouted at Zichen, "You dare to break the rules in the market? How dare you?" Zichen bent down and put away the long strip of cloth. Apparently, he did not intend to set up the stall anymore. After he got up, his eyes fell on Shisheng. He said calmly, "Just tell me what you want." Zichen's straightforwardness caused Shisheng to be slightly stunned. The other leaders were also stunned. Shisheng said directly, "Leave behind the resources, and I'll let you live. Otherwise die." Zichen chuckled and said, "You are straightforward enough, but I don't know what resources you are talking about. Spirit melting pill and soul condensing pill." "That's right," Shisheng said coldly. "I have hundreds of these pills on me. I don't know if you want me to leave behind one or all of them." Zichen asked again. His tone was still calm. Everyone was shocked by the number of pills Zichen said. If he really had so many pills on him, it was undoubtedly a huge fortune. The value of these pills alone was far greater than that of a load of elemental liquid. Everyone's expression immediately changed. The greed in their eyes grew stronger, and their breathing quickened. Driven by greed, Shisheng shouted, "Of course you have to leave all of them behind. All of your resources must be left behind. Otherwise, this matter will not end here." As soon as he finished speaking, a group of more than 20 people surrounded Zichen. They held elixir weapons in their hands, and their elemental energy was dormant. They were ready to attack at any time. "You only have one chance." Shisheng took a step forward, his killing intent surging. Zichen glanced around indifferently and said sarcastically, "I originally wanted to do business peacefully and be an honest businessman, but you guys keep forcing me, a businessman, to do this." Forget it, I might as well go all out. You won't have a chance, Qin Meng said coldly. Is that so? Zi Chen looked at Qin Meng and asked, Aren't you curious at all about what I got in there that day? Qin Meng's expression changed. Even Wu Yu glanced at Zi Chen from afar. Qin Meng gritted his teeth and said, What did you get? Hurry up and tell us. Zi Chen shook his head and said, I can't tell you. You can only see. I'll show you. As soon as he finished speaking, Zi Chen reached for his waist. He grabbed the sleeping azure dragon and threw it into the air. Everyone only saw Zi Chen throw out a green belt. But who would have thought that after the belt rose into the air, it actually emitted a blinding green light? A loud dragon roar sounded in the next moment, and a green dragon that was dozens of meters long appeared. That's the azure dragon. Everyone was deeply shocked by the appearance of the azure dragon. The azure dragon soared into the air, its body twisting and turning. Its pair of dragon eyes looked at Zi Chen as if it was unhappy that it was woken up. Zi Chen pointed at the people who were about to attack and said, Kill them and then sleep. Roar. The Torvosaurus let out another roar and dived towards a person. The Torvosaurus' strength had already reached the peak of level 8. It was only one step away from level 9. Its battle strength was naturally strong. Whether it was speed or battle strength, the current Torvosaurus was not inferior to a Xiantian martial artist. Therefore, the first person to be hit by the Torvosaurus was the unluckiest. Puff! The dragon claw was like a sharp blade, directly cutting through the opponent's head. In a flash of azure light, the opponent's body was also split apart. After that attack, the Torvosaurus followed up with another tail flick. This time, the tail flick contained absolute power. Unfortunately, 2 challengers were swept away. One of them was swept away by this huge power and exploded. The other was sent flying, but after landing on the ground, he did not get up again. In just 2 attacks, the Torvosaurus had already killed 3 challengers. Its powerful battle strength shocked everyone. Kill! The Torvosaurus had only killed their subordinates. This action did not shock Shisheng. Instead, it completely enraged him. In the next moment, several leaders attacked the Torvosaurus. But at this moment, Zi Chen attacked. They only saw a flash of silver light. Zi Chen had already swept past them and arrived in front of Qin Meng. The 2 of them fiercely clashed. Bang! Zi Chen stopped on the spot, but Qin Meng was sent flying for more than 10 meters. When his body landed on the ground, there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Qin Meng looked at Zi Chen in disbelief. Zi Chen's powerful battle strength had caused Qin Meng's expression to change. I'll finish you with the next attack, Zi Chen said coldly. Then, Zi Chen's body emitted a golden light. He displayed his Xiantian strength battle technique and struck towards Qin Meng. The golden light of the fist dyed the sky, and a terrifying aura surged. Qin Meng felt the threat of death from the fist. His expression changed drastically. He quickly mobilized all the Yuan force in his body to defend himself. His mind was shocked to the extreme by Zi Chen's attack. Boom! The fist landed on Qin Meng's body and exploded. Qin Meng's defense was instantly shattered. At the same time, Zi Chen's fist landed on Qin Meng's chest. Qin Meng's level 6 defense was so weak in the face of Zi Chen's attack. Qin Meng coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. There were pieces of his internal organs in the blood. His pupils bulged out, almost falling out from the impact of the energy. In Zi Chen's punch, there was also a terrifying force. This force was like breaking a dead tree. It rushed into Qin Meng's mind. Qin Meng's body trembled, and then his soul was destroyed and he died. Qin Meng died in one blow. At the side, the others were all stunned, so much so that the attack movements of their hands slowed down slightly. Qin Meng was known as the leader of the Green Peak. He was not weak, but he was killed in one blow. After killing Qin Meng, Zi Chen raised his head and looked at the Torvosaurus. Let's end this quickly. The Torvosaurus's aura surged violently when he heard this. Then he attacked one of the leaders. Bang! Pooh! With a loud bang, the leader's attack was shattered. At the same time, a green light broke through the leader's body. This was the leader of the Bright Creek Gorge, but he was killed by the Torvosaurus in one blow. At the same time, Zi-Chen punched again. With a loud bang, he used his Xiantian strength and level 8 strength to kill another leader. This was a massacre, causing fear to well up in everyone's hearts. Xisheng and the others understood at this moment that they had bitten off more than they could chew. Be it Qinglong or this person, the weakest of them was at the peak of the Hotian realm. They might even be at the peak of the Xiantian realm. Misunderstanding. This is a misunderstanding. Seeing the people around him dying one by one, Xisheng screamed in fear. Unfortunately, Zi-Chen, who had started the massacre, would not give him another chance. Sirs, Zhu Jin, Fu Ji, sirs, help. Seeing that they ignored him, Xisheng quickly spread out his spiritual thoughts and asked for help from the two people who were dozens of miles away. These two people were at the peak of the Hotian realm. They came from the Tianjiao city and had the Tianjiao token. They were real big shots. Xisheng, is something wrong? We'll go there immediately. Hearing Xisheng's call for help, the two people turned into two bolts of lightning and rushed toward the market. In the market, the sounds of explosions continued. More and more cultivators died, regardless of whether they were the leaders or their subordinates. They were all killed after one blow. After one blow, the people who fell never got up again. Intentionally or not, Xisheng escaped. Zi-Chen and the Torvosaurus did not kill him immediately. Soon, more than 20 people died. Only Xisheng was left. At this moment, Xisheng's face was full of shock, but he did not despair, because his pursuers had arrived. Who dares to behave atrociously here? A loud shout came from the sky. Then a terrifying aura surged. Two powerhouses flew in this direction at high speed. Zi-Chen looked up and glanced at the two people in the sky. At this moment, the two people also saw Zi-Chen and the Torvosaurus. The moment they saw Zi-Chen and the Torvosaurus, the two people staggered and their faces changed. Under everyone's gaze, the two people turned around and flew toward the sky. Their speed was several times faster than when they came. Chapter 858. The sudden escape of the two reinforcements caused everyone to be astonished. After the astonishment, everyone once again looked at Zi-Chen with strange gazes. Just one look and two people were scared away. Who was this guy? The two obviously recognized Zi-Chen and ran away. Could he be from the Heavens' Pride City? Wu Yu was also shocked by Zi-Chen's strength. His indifferent face was now filled with shock. But what really moved him was the escape of Zhu Jin and Fu Ji. Wu Yu knew their strength the best. They were only one step away from the Xiantian realm. But such people were scared away after seeing Zi-Chen. Obviously, they knew Zi-Chen and had suffered a great loss in Zi-Chen's hands. The reinforcements had fled, and Xisheng was in despair. Even the people of Tianjiao City had been scared away. It was clear that this person had an extraordinary status. At this moment, he really wanted to kneel down and beg for mercy. He wanted to say that he would work like an ox or horse in the future to atone for his crimes. The Torvosaurus attack had already reached him. This level of attack had killed several people who were on the same level as him. Although he had prepared his strongest defense in advance, he was still not confident. As the Torvosaurus attack landed, Xisheng shouted, "Stop! I know a place with treasures." Bang! The Torvosaurus attack shattered Xisheng's layers of defense. He flew back dozens of meters, but he did not die. Because of the last sentence, he was saved. Treasures? What treasures? Zi-Chen looked at Xisheng coldly. Although Xisheng was not dead, he was severely injured by the last attack. After a while, he said, "It's an inheritance treasure. If you want to know, if you want to get it, you have to promise not to kill me. Do you think you have the right to negotiate with me now?" Zi-Chen did not look at Xisheng. Instead, he walked towards the dead cultivators and bent down to take their spiritual rings and inner cores one by one. Shi Sheng's expression kept changing. Then he looked at Wu Yu. The latter's eyes were still cold. Shi Sheng gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, I'll tell you. The inheritance treasure is with him." Shi Sheng pointed at Wu Yu. Ziqin had already collected half of the spirit rings. Hearing Shi Sheng's words, he didn't even raise his head. He just chuckled and said lightly, "What you said is equivalent to not saying anything. In fact, I am very easy to talk to, but that is before I kill people. After I kill people, it is very difficult to talk to." Shi Sheng's expression changed drastically, but unfortunately he couldn't finish his sentence. The attack of the barbaric dragon had arrived. Shi Sheng widened his eyes, unwilling to die. Chen stepped forward and looked down at Shi Sheng. He said coldly, "I gave you a chance before, but you were too confident." As soon as he finished speaking, Chen pointed his finger at Shi Sheng, and a beam of energy fell on Shi Sheng's body. Shi Sheng's body directly exploded, leaving behind only his inner core and spiritual ring. Including Qing Feng, the leaders of the five forces had actually died today. Moreover, they were all killed in a single strike. In the surroundings, the crowd was still in a state of shock. After Ziqin put away all the resources, he turned his head to look at Wu Yu. Wu Yu also looked at Ziqin, but did not say anything. Ziqin released a beam of energy and broke the seal in Wu Yu's body. The battle was over, and the people who had fainted earlier woke up. When they raised their heads and saw Ziqin, their blank expressions were replaced with panic. Then they hastily got up, but they quickly found the corpses on the ground. When they saw so many familiar faces, their mouths twitched, especially Mu Wen. He actually saw the corpses of the four leaders among the corpses. As for his leader, Shi Sheng, he was nowhere to be found. Their leaders were dead, but their opponents were still alive. If Mu Wen still didn't understand what had happened, he would really be an idiot. After the group got up, they stood there, not even daring to breathe loudly. At this moment, Ziqin was checking the spiritual rings. He was quite satisfied with today's harvest. It seems that robbing really is the fastest way to get rich. Ziqin put away all the resources, then looked at the stall owner who had struck up a conversation with him. "Third brother Yan, right?" The latter nodded with a flattering smile. "Do you really know the people of Heaven's Pride City? Can you help me sell my things?" asked Ziqin. Third brother Yan was almost scared to tears. He hurriedly said, "Great Lord, we are serious businessmen. We don't rely on robbing." Ziqin smiled. "I am also a serious businessman. If I wasn't serious, you wouldn't be standing, right? You would be lying down." Third brother Yan's body immediately trembled. Obviously, he was scared out of his wits. Ziqin only had a few resources. Although he had plundered a lot, this area was almost the same as the ancient road. No one would complain about having too many resources. So Ziqin needed to exchange for more. After threats and promises, third brother Yan finally gave in and was taken away by Ziqin. Mu Wen and the others didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They only felt relieved when Ziqin left. Ziqin didn't look at Wu Yu, but when he left the market, Wu Yu followed him. Ziqin turned to look at Wu Yu and said, "You're free. You don't have to follow me." Wu Yu looked at Ziqin and said what he said was true. "What? Treasure? I really know a treasure," Wu Yu said seriously. "Oh," Ziqin nodded, but he didn't care because he now had several innate skill inheritances. Ordinary inheritances were useless. Third brother Yan, who was beside Ziqin, was very interested, but he didn't dare to ask. Seeing Ziqin turn around and leave without asking any questions, a hint of surprise flashed across Wu Yu's face. Thus, he quickly followed behind him. "The people you killed before all had some background. You killed them and let those two people go. It's the same as inviting trouble," Wu Yu said behind Ziqin. "I'm not afraid of trouble." Ziqin didn't care. Wu Yu's expression changed. In the end, he said, "My background in Heaven's Pride City has been eliminated. I have nowhere to go. I want to follow you." When Zichun heard this, his expression changed. He turned his head and said, "You have a backer in the Heaven's Pride City." Wu Yu nodded. "That's my family. In fact, it's not just me. Chunmeng and the others also have a background." "If you have a background, why don't you go to Heaven's Pride City?" asked Zichun curiously. Wu Yu smiled bitterly and said, "It's not that easy to enter the Heaven's Pride City. Although the Heaven's Pride City gives out entry tokens every year, there are only 20 of them. 10 of them need to reach a certain level of combat strength before they'll be given out. The other 10 are purely for sale or auction, but the base price is 100 drops of high-grade yuan liquid. So there's such a thing." Zichen's curiosity grew. This ancient trial path is open to the entire martial heaven continent. It's always been open. As the #1 gathering place of the human race, a large number of trial takers come every year. There are even more experts among them. "A mere 10 tokens aren't enough," said Wu Yu. "Although there are people from my Wu family in Heaven's Pride City, not all of them have the qualifications to enter. In fact, it's not just my Wu family. There are many other powers here. They're all in the outside world. Although Heaven's Pride City is the focus of the entire world, their true power is outside Heaven's Pride City." "Outside Heaven's Pride City? Are you talking about those powers?" A trace of disdain appeared on Zichen's face. Wu Yu shook his head. "Those are the truly large powers. These small powers can't compare to them. The larger the power, the further they are from this place. Furthermore, those large powers mostly occupy resource veins." "Resource veins? There are resource veins here?" This time it was Yen Laosan who asked. He clearly didn't know about this. "Of course there are, and there are many of them," said Wu Yu. "This place is comparable to a true world. It's said that it's a quarter the size of the martial heaven continent. Although the spiritual qi here is berserk, it can give birth to some miraculous things. The quality of the veins here is extremely high. Any random vein you find will be a high-grade yuan stone vein. If you're lucky, you might even find a yuan liquid vein. Those large powers are all guarding their own veins." Hearing Wu Yu's words, Zichun pondered for a moment before asking, "What kind of experts are guarding these mineral veins?" As if guessing what Zichun was thinking, Wu Yu said, "They're all trial takers. Mortal yuan experts aren't allowed to participate. Although that's the case, there are shadows of mortal yuan experts in the various large powers veins." Wu Yu then added, "Of course, the mortal yuan experts here refer to those who have successfully walked the ancient road, not those who have broken through here. There's a rule here. Once you break through to the mortal yuan realm, you must leave this place and step onto the ancient road. Otherwise, you can stay in the city forever." Zichun nodded. As expected, there was a saying about having a backer everywhere. Once you had a backer in the mortal yuan realm, it would be the biggest backer. "Have the tokens been given out today?" asked Zichun. He wanted to go to Heaven's Pride City to take a look. Wu Yu said, "You're late. They were given out a month ago." Zichun was greatly disappointed. Obviously, the idea of getting a token to enter Heaven's Pride City had gone up in smoke. On the way to Heaven's Pride City, the 3 of them were extremely lucky. They didn't encounter any robbers. In less than half a day, they arrived outside Heaven's Pride City. Heaven's Pride City was grand and tall. It covered thousands of miles. The city gates and walls were hundreds of meters high. From afar, it looked like a giant beast, full of majesty. After Yen Laosan arrived, he sent out a signal. The 3 of them waited a few miles away. There were also some people standing there, seemingly waiting for the people from Heaven's Pride City. Heaven's Pride City covers more than 1,000 miles. Flying is not allowed inside. It will take some time for him to come out. Yen Laosan was afraid that Zichun would be anxious. Zichun looked at Yen Laosan and asked, "Yen Laosan, is this person your backer?" Yen Laosan smiled bitterly and said, "How could I have a backer? He's a businessman like me. We've worked together before.